Hey everyone, welcome to GameFace, episode 267 on Sifted Games at sifted.net. And people, I think we figured out our cameras. I think. Last week was our first episode in our brand new studio. This is week 2. As you can see, I've got Matt Kyle here with me. We've done a little set decorating. I don't want to make it too noisy, too loud. I want to keep it clean. But I think it definitely sets the tone for what I think is one of the best gaming podcasts in the world. GameFace. Matt, how has your week been? We've got some unfortunate news from friends this week, from 2 different friends this week.
Yeah, better than that was my week. I have no unfortunate news for you.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to feel bad with what's been going on. For those of you who don't know, this week Marcus Beer was diagnosed with prostate cancer, and it's not good. It's metastasized, which is bad. He has an appointment today to really get the information on it. Mm-hmm. If you're religious, say a prayer for Marcus. If you're not, send all the positive vibes you can. This is a serious deal after he just went through a crazy he had a heart attack, and that wasn't like he got through that, but it was a problem for him for like a year and a half.
I'm a little shocked that they didn't catch this sooner, because he's in and out of doctors so
I don't
often.
understand it either, because all the blood tests that they would have done for his heart, how they wouldn't have.
A lot of tests like that, you got to be looking for it specifically. If it's not in the screen, requested in the screen, you're not going to get it. But like, it's just amazing. Like he said in the tweet, get checked, boys.
Yeah,
prostate cancer will happen to everyone with a prostate.
Eventually,
if you live long enough.
Yeah.
So,
and it used to be that they told you to wait until you were 50 to get it checked, essentially, to have a colonoscopy. Now they're saying if anyone in your family has ever had an issue with it, or kind of earlier-ish in life, that you should start doing that at 45. So that's something I'm going to have to start thinking about getting done.
I already had one done 2 years ago.
Yeah.
For an unrelated issue, but everything is fine.
Yeah, I've never had one.
It's I'll tell you this much: the procedure, not too bad. The prep sucks.
Do you not eat?
You don't eat, and you have to basically take an entire container of laxative mixed with a giant 264-ounce bottles of Gatorade over the course of like 8 hours, and just to empty yourself out. And it is it's not the end I'd wish for, lad. Like I'll tell you that much. It's just
lots of time spent in the bathroom.
At a certain point, what I actually did was I played the Shadow of the Colossus remake, Time Trials, because I'd never done the time trials, and the amount of time it took to do a time trial was just about a space between trips to the bathroom. So
it's not good.
I got it all done though, like platinum that shit, literally.
I hate to even be laughing right now because Marcus, it's not good, people.
But you know what? Marcus would also laugh.
He would. You're absolutely right. Go see
Marcus
him on social media.
In shockingly good spirits.
Yeah, he is. He's at Annoyed Gamer on Twitter. Send him all the positive vibes, all of them, everything you got. He's going to need them. This is just the beginning. He's going to have to go through treatment. The treatment is going to be awful. So anyway, he's been just heavy on my heart ever since I heard about this. And you need support from people. His family's all the way over in the UK. He doesn't have anyone other than his wife here with him to kind of give him support. So let's be his surrogate family, his family away from home, and lift him up and try to keep him with a positive attitude, because it can make a world of difference. And I've reached out to him. I've let him know, I'll do anything I can to help him. I'll take him to treatments if he needs someone, if his wife needs to work or whatever. So everyone just needs to try to pitch in and do a little bit. And from your perspective, just being positive and staying positive with him and offering him your encouragement can go a long way. And then there's Adam Sessler, who is having some kind of a crazy back problem right now. And as you told me, he's in surgery today?
He's having surgery today, probably almost maybe around now or in an hour or so. He's talked about it on Twitter. It's a lumbar radiculopathy. Which is basically a very severely pinched nerve in the lower back, which he's had, back problems forever. I remember when we first moved to LA, at one point he called me and was like, I need you to drive me to the hospital because I can't move. And so I helped him in my car and drove him to Cedar Sinai, and they had to basically inject him with stuff to let him bend over again. So this is I guess they did like some MRIs, and the spinal guy was like, "Yeah, I want you in surgery like tomorrow. Like, let's go." And so it's going to be a big deal, but it's the surgeon is hopeful that he can fix a lot of Adam's back problems that have plagued him for years and years. So Adam actually, I talked to him today. He's actually feeling pretty good about it.
You talked to him before or after surgery?
Before. I don't know if he's in surgery yet or not.
Anytime they mess with my back, it makes me very nervous.
Oh yeah, well the thing was like he was losing feeling in his foot. It's like the nerve is so badly pinched that it was killing it basically. So this has to happen to essentially save the feeling in his leg.
Wow.
So this is an absolutely necessary surgery, but it will, with luck, if it goes well, it will alleviate a lot of his physical pain, like chronic pain problems he's had in his back for years. So it could actually be a really good thing in the end.
Yeah, people. So no matter how bad you think your week was, it can be worse, way worse. So try to keep a positive attitude through the bad times and help people when they're going through tough times. Also send some positive vibes out to Adam today. Is he just at Adam Sessler on Twitter?
I think so. I mean, just search Adam Sessler on Twitter.
He'll be the first one to pop up for
Apparently
sure.
Already one of the nurses was like, "Are you that Adam Sessler?"
She knew who he was.
And he's like, I'm like, "Oh wow, that could go a couple of different ways." He's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Oh, I loved Xenogears."
I doubt she knows him that well.
No.
But anyway, and as you said, you're right. Marcus, he actually is in amazing spirits. Just cracking jokes with me on text, and I don't know how I would react because it just came out of nowhere. Like he said he just felt kind of tired for a couple days and just out of curiosity, brought it up with his doctor, and it just turned out that he had his yearly checkup. Also, don't forget, people, get your annual checkups because that's how you catch this stuff before it gets too bad. Yeah,
especially as we, behold the ravages of time.
Right, exactly. Just look at us. You're going to look like us eventually someday, too. Yep. So as you get older, you definitely need to make sure you're getting those annual checkups. Even if you're young, you just never know.
Yeah.
And the checkup takes like 40 minutes. Let them take your blood and do some blood work on you, and they can catch a lot of stuff before it gets out of control.
Yeah,
so.
Especially if you're in a country that offers medical care
to
its citizens.
Yeah. If you live in Europe where your medical care is free,
we probably don't need to even tell you this.
Yeah, you've been doing this your whole life. But in America, a lot of people don't have medical insurance, and then they don't get their annual checkup. And then they get something bad, they don't catch it in time, and then they're basically financially ruined.
Yeah, because that costs
America.
Even more than
that's
regular
America.
checkup. Yeah,
it's amazing.
Excuse me, Shane. I believe that's freedom.
Yeah, for freedom, as I like to call it. Matt, did you see that if you go to the hospital for COVID and you have insurance, if you don't need intubated and you don't need a ventilator, your bill is on average $30,000 out of pocket. If you need intubated and you need to go on the ventilator, it's $120,000 on average if you have insurance.
Yep.
If you don't, your life is ruined.
Yeah. Well, you mean
even if you survive the COVID, financially you're ruined. Just another reason to get vaccinated.
Even if you do have the insurance, that can ruin a lot of people, that amount of money.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
You should see what it costs to give birth.
It is really expensive. That's why a lot of women now are just hiring like a midwife to come to their house and like deliver the baby.
Yeah, the doula craze is in part a financial decision.
Yeah. It's insane how we make decisions in America because our healthcare is terrible. Just terrible. But I'll tell you one thing that's not terrible. GameFace. It's a great gaming podcast, and we're here to discuss all the big stories and games from the week. Games, not so much this week. Not a lot of them. One pretty big one I got to play in beta, and we're going to talk about that. But not a lot of game releases. The end of this month is really loaded because all the big games release at the end of the month, and there's Gamescom. Gamescom is in like 2 weeks, and we'll be covering that as usual on Sifted, Sifted.net, the best place to go for any type of event coverage. You can sift all the content from any event by any category you want, like 60 different categories. No better place to go for big gaming conventions than Sifted.net. Let's see, what else do I got? Ask Shane Anything, recording this Saturday. I know it seems maybe a little early because we just did one like 2 weeks ago. But last month we got off schedule. This month we're staying on schedule and doing it the second Saturday of the month. So Ask Shane Anything is happening on Saturday at noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern. Again, if you pledge at $7 or more per month, you can basically jump into the Zoom call and be a part of it. Everybody gets to watch the archive, but if you want to participate, you have to pledge at that or higher. And then finally, I'm finally ready to commit to a day for the Super Mario Maker 2 stream where I will be playing the levels that you guys create. We're going to do that not this Saturday, but next Saturday at the same time, noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern. Just wanted to get it on your radar now. Excuse me, in case you've been building a level and you need to finish it up, or in case you have multiple levels and you need to decide which one you want me to play. Again, don't be evil. Don't just create this impossible level where I'm going to sit there and play it, and I'm going to create a rule as well. I'm only going to try maximum each level 10 times. If I can't get through it in 10 tries, I'm going to move on to the next one. So keep that in mind when you're building levels. If you make it impossible, I'm going to beat my head against the wall for 10 tries and move on. So don't make it easy. You don't have to make it easy, but you can make one just fun if you want to. If you're really creative and it's easy for me to play, but it's fun for people to watch, totally cool with that. But just don't go crazy and try to like embarrass Shane on the stream because he can't get through your level. I know for some people that's the first thing they think of when you got to do something like this. Like, how can I make Shane look like an idiot on a stream? Don't do that. Like, let's have fun with this stream. I want to have fun checking out the stuff that you guys have created and things like that. So anyway, ask Shane anything this Saturday. The Super Mario Maker 2 stream the Saturday afterwards. So again, if you're working on a level for that, finish it up. And one final thing. Man, lots of announcements today. Lots of housekeeping. Our Sifted Fantasy Football League is kicking off for another season this year. I just relaunched the website. Everyone who is in the league should have got an email saying, hey, are you going to play this year? I got one response out of 11 people. So it's a 12-person league. I'm obviously one of them. And we have one person who's already bowed out. And I hate to say it, and I hate to call him out on stream, but McWomble is not playing fantasy football this year. He literally was one of the most engaged people in the league. He just said he's really busy at this time of year and he can't do it this year. So we already have one slot open for the Sifted Fantasy Football League. And this is football. This isn't our Sifted video game league that we do every year. This is fantasy football. That league's been going now for 5 years, going on its 6th year, which is pretty amazing. So we already have one slot, and we may have more once people email me back. And everybody in the league, email me back and let me know if you're going to play. But if you are interested in joining, and every year we have like 4 or 5 people who want to play that don't get in because they don't have any slots. If you've been waiting to get in, this is your chance. Again, we already have one slot available. I'm guessing we'll have at least a couple more. So if you want to play, just DM me on Sifted @Shane. Just go into messages, and when it says to, just go @Shane, and then just let me know that you want to play, and I'll take you guys into the league in the order that you guys reach out to me. So the first person to reach out to me on Sifted with a DM gets McWomble's slot. So if you want to do that right now, go right ahead. So there's one slot open. There might be more. And then once we have the head count and we know who's playing, we'll start setting up draft. And we usually do like a Zoom call for draft where everybody's on camera and we're all talking as we it's fun. So if you want to hang out with some sifters and me for a fantasy football draft, let me know. Again, DM me @Shane on sifted.net. And if you want, you can reach me on Twitter too. It's cool. Wherever you know that you can reach me privately, where it's not in front of everybody, I will let you into the league and we'll take it from there. So I think finally we're ready for the show. That was a big intro. We're going to lead off with the game I was teasing a little bit earlier, the only big game that you really could play this week. Matt, I sent you a beta code for it. Did you play?
Nope.
I knew you weren't going to.
I did not get around to that.
I felt a little bad sending it to you because I thought you wouldn't play, and I was like, I could probably send this to somebody who will play, but I just wanted to tease you with it just in case you might consider it.
I was willing to play it, but like yesterday ended up being I had to do other work.
Gotcha. Okay.
Because otherwise I was going to play it yesterday. But
Gotcha. Okay, well, the game is Back for Blood. It had an quote-unquote open beta this weekend. And if you weren't like a journalist who, they sent codes out, if you wanted to get in yourself, and this is interesting, Matt, you could get into the beta by going and watching someone else play it on Twitch for an hour. So that Twitch API has some way that it connects with like WB Games website, and they know how much time you've spent watching streams for their game.
Yeah, it just gives you a drop and you cash it in, I think.
Yeah. Well, then after you watch it for an hour, it says, "Hey, you earned it." And then it is a little confusing. I'll say this: like once I got like the drop, figuring out how to get the code was a little confusing. But anyway, that was a process you had to go through to get into it for this weekend. However, the full real open beta launches Thursday. For everybody, and it's on every platform. I ended up playing it on my Xbox Series X. If you get a code, you can redeem it, and you can choose whatever platform you want, PlayStation, Xbox, or PC. I played the game on Xbox Series X. As I said last week, it has become my daily driver. Matt, how big of a fan are you of Left 4 Dead? Is that a shooter that you kind of liked, even though you're not a huge fan of the genre?
Yeah, I mean, between the Left 4 Dead 1 and 2, I probably played those games 400 or 500 hours.
Oh, okay.
Like,
so you spent a lot of time.
I had a group that we just played constantly. By the end of it, I was utterly sick of it. Like, I don't ever want to see Left 4 Dead ever again. Like, I played it to the point of never wanting to touch it again. Like, I get, like you feel the night after you drink a lot and you're just like, oh, never doing that again. Like, that's how I feel about some like games like Left 4 Dead and Phantasy Star Online. Like, I can't do that anymore.
I'll tell you this, Matt. I did the funny.
This
part
looks interesting to me, but like it's a sore spot. It's a button I pressed over and over and over and over again. I don't even know if I ever need to press it again.
The funny part, Matt, is that I did not play Left 4 Dead anywhere near as much as you did. Like, I basically played it the first 2 games all the way through once, and then I would jump back in a little bit because this game does this too. Once you get in there, you can, and you've played through some of the game, you can kind of pick and choose the point that you want to jump into. I did a little bit of that after I finished each campaign for both of the games, but then I was pretty much done. And I'll say this, Matt, if you feel like you're completely worn out on the formula, you won't like Back 4 Blood. Mm-hmm. It's essentially a complete facsimile of Left 4 Dead with a couple little tweaks here and there. The biggest change is that the whole game is driven by cards, believe it or not. So you build like a deck of cards, and you earn points as you play the game, and there's a merchant in this hub area that we're seeing right now that you go to, and you can buy new cards from the merchant. And then before each match, first of all, you set up a deck from all the cards that you have. Decks are 15 cards. And then before you go into each match, you're basically allowed, I think, to take like 6 or 7 cards into each match with you. And then when the match starts, they throw you a couple wild cards. And sometimes you can choose between like 2 cards, or sometimes they're just like, this is the only one. But you basically go into each match with a handful of cards. The cards do a bunch of different stuff. They'll give you buffs as far as like increasing your stamina. There's a stamina meter in this game, which I am not a huge fan of.
I mean, there was some of that in the universe. Like, you couldn't just kick forever or anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, if you run in this too long, like you get tired and you walk really slowly, which is basically a death sentence in this game. So there's like buffs. There's also like team-wide buffs. Like everybody gets like a plus 5% health or something like that. You can also get like brand new attacks. Like there was one that I unlocked called like the heavy attack, and you could hold the attack button and it would build up a more powerful melee attack. And so you go into each match with those cards, and hopefully you choose correctly based upon the obstacles you're going to face in each level. The beta itself had, 2 acts, and each act had 4 chapters in it. It appears that I played like the first act of the game and then the 4th act of the game. So they give you like a pretty wide cross section of what's going to be in the final game. The funny part was the first one was way more interesting. It actually traverses a variety of locales, and there's a boss fight that like carries it over from chapter to chapter. Like you fight him once, you knock him down to like half health. Like 2 chapters later, he comes back and you finish him off. The second act that I played, which is later on into the game, was a lot less exciting. It was all just kind of in this outdoor, like brown and gray area. Not a lot of memorable landmarks. It got a little dull, to be honest with you. And just like Left 4 Dead, you play through each chapter, and at the end of each chapter, there's a safe house. At the safe house, you can save, you can heal up, you can buy new weapons, you can buy new ammo, you can buy new grenades. Another part of the game is there's some objects that you need to use to get into like weapon caches. So if you make sure that you buy like a toolkit, you can get into those caches and it can help your whole team. One thing about this game that I do not like, that is a problem in a lot of games of this type, is it's first come, first served. So if somebody's just always rushing ahead, they're always collecting the good stuff and leaving the rest of the stuff behind. That drives me crazy in a lot of these games, and unfortunately, this game also includes that feature. Not a big fan of that. One thing that maybe I feel is a little different, and maybe my memory is just a little hazy about Left 4 Dead, is that the melee system in this actually is effective. Like, you can make it through the level using melee weapons.
Yeah, that wasn't really feasible in Left 4 Dead. Like, melee was more of a get off me move.
Right. Yeah, if you're getting surrounded, like,
if you really wanted to kill something, you needed to shoot
you need a gun. Not in this one, man. You can very much make hay with melee weapons in this. But I will say this too: melee weapons do not upgrade as much as the guns. So the way the weapons work in this, there's guns all over the place. Like, every building has a new gun you can grab. Every safe house has a bunch of guns that you can choose from, or you can just buy one if you want to. But the way the guns work is that as you play, you get new attachments and they become more powerful. So what I found is that, one, guns ultimately are better than melee because you can build them more. Two, the other thing that I found is I just stick with the same gun. Even if, like, when I don't like it, if I stick with it, eventually there will be enough attachments available that you find throughout playing the levels that you can get the gun to a place, one, where it works really well, no matter what sort of category the gun falls into, but two, where you enjoy playing with it. And if you find, like, say you put on a scope and you hate the scope, you can take it off. If you find another one, you can swap it out. You can really, across the course of each act, you end up just like a total slayer by the end, if you're not sort of dropping your weapon or swapping it out for something else. You do feel like you become more powerful as each act goes on. I talked about the stamina meter a little earlier. I am not a fan of stamina meters in pretty much anything in video games. This one is also maybe even a little more annoying because, as I said earlier, if you aren't running at full sprint, you're basically a sitting duck. There are so many zombies, and sometimes they just drop, like, over a wall behind you. Like, you think you're in a corner, and you think you only have to face one direction.
I don't remember. It's been a long time since I played Left 4 Dead. I don't remember a limit on how much you could run.
Yeah. Well, the running in this takes away your stamina meter.
Like, I remember if you meleeed too much, you'd get they like be like,
that does it too. Yeah.
But, like, I don't remember not being able to run when I needed to run.
Yep.
But that might be wrong. I don't remember it that well.
And if you run out of stamina, you're in a tough spot unless it happens just as you're finishing the wave.
If you told me this was like a level mod, I would believe you.
Yeah. I mean, obviously it looks a little better.
Oh yeah, it looks better, but, like,
not a lot though.
I mean, if you told me this was like a player-made total conversion for, like, Left 4 Dead 2, like with modern, like what they did with TIE Fighter or something, I would believe you.
It doesn't look great. It looks okay. It's really gory, as you can tell.
Entirely passable. Like, it's fine. Yeah. But, like, yeah, there's a couple things in here. I'm just like, really? That's not, like, cease and desist territory? I mean, I guess no one cares, but it's just like the
it's
like, just because the tank throws up now instead of the fat guy, like, that makes it different, I guess.
Well, you can see the lower third there says grave robber, because I mean, they're literally just lifting the Left 4 Dead.
Even the safe room looks the same. Really.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, some people will like that because you will feel right at
you
home.
Want more Left 4 Dead, like, sure.
Yeah. Some people
if it ain't
will
broke.
Feel and I think, also Valve is reportedly working on Left 4 Dead 3. So, I don't know.
But we all know Valve can't count to 3. So.
Right. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see if people wait out for Valve's game or if they're going to be happy with this. I mean, I will say this. If you're a big Left 4 Dead fan, you're going to be totally fine with this.
Yeah, I mean, these are the guys who made Left 4 Dead.
Yeah, it's Turtle Rock. So it is a carbon copy of that. So if you've waited all this time for a new Left 4 Dead, I think you're going to love it. Anyone who maybe burned out on the formula like Matt and is hoping for something new, I don't think that the cards really...
No, I never expected something new from this. The card thing is interesting, but it's also like... I don't know, something about as someone who does play card games and likes card stuff like that, like, for some reason, like, even when Halo did it, I found it like not annoying, but, like, distancing. Like, there's something, I don't know, there's something artificial about it. There's something that makes me feel like I'm not building a character, or that I'm not. It feels like you're adding a level of separation between the game and me. Like, it's or like another level of abstraction, which doesn't make sense in the theme. So, like, why am I using cards for this instead of, I don't know, like a skill tree,
right? Or
like something. Tomb Raider, same with the Tomb Raider stuff. It's like, why are there cards in this? I don't get that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's what you kind of intimated, which is that they want you to be able to basically respec your character every time. And it does allow for that. You're not ever locked into this tree. And I do realize a lot of skill trees will let you completely wipe it and just start over.
I felt, I haven't played Dead by Daylight that much, but I did feel more ownership over developing my character in that than I would if you were playing card decks differently every time. Yeah,
and I haven't seen, like, a lot of, like, first of all, you have, when you start you can choose from like 5 or 6 pre-made characters. There isn't, so far from what I've seen playing it, there isn't a lot of character customization. Like I didn't find a lot of like skins and outfits, and I wasn't unlocking any stuff like that.
Do they talk? Is it funny?
Yeah. Okay.
Because I like the characters in Left 4 Dead a lot.
I'm glad you brought that up. They talk a lot. And it's just a lot of one-liners, and probably 1 out of 8 hits lands. It gets annoying after a while.
It's not as clever as...
It's not. No.
One of my favorite lines in video game history is when you run by the graffiti that says like it's something like they crossed. It's like a graffiti that crossed out God or something, or the zombies or whatever. Zombies or and the one Zoe goes, "Oh no, the zombies killed God."
There's nothing as
like
clever
the gallows
as that.
humor is very funny.
There's it repeats a lot. So you hear the same quips over and over and over again. I eventually turned it off.
That's too bad. Like I don't associate Left 4 Dead with quips so much as like the characters talking to each other.
Yeah,
like
there's a lot of that.
Like you learn who they are by their interactions with each other.
And there's a lot of context-sensitive stuff, kind of like what you mentioned. They'll be like, "Oh, this room really stinks," or stuff like that. But I'd never found myself laughing at anything that they said. They do develop the characters, probably is the only development that happens, because there's really no cinematics in this. I mean, I don't know if maybe the final game might have them, but the beta, there is like nothing. There's really no plot.
It probably wouldn't be in the beta because they don't want you to have to download CG or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, there's really no plot in it.
Because the other, Left 4 Dead 1 and 2 did have a story.
I know.
They did.
Yeah.
There was a narrative through line, even if by the time you played each level for the 40th time, you forgot what it was. But
yeah. There's nothing like that in this. There's like some real-time cinematics when a boss is introduced or something.
You forget there's a reason you start that one level in a plane crash.
Right. This one, like, there's really no setup. And again, maybe it is included in the final game. I'm just talking about what I saw in the beta. Yeah.
Considering how much this is duplicating Left 4 Dead, I would think that it will have the same kind of narrative.
Because it does feel weird. Otherwise it's just like this endless zombie slayer. Like, I don't know.
That is what Left 4 Dead felt like after a while.
Yeah, after a while. Did the plot even matter? Some people would argue maybe it didn't.
Not really. I mean, there's a lot of people got inexplicably attached to Bill.
Yeah, that's true.
For that DLC.
And something had to happen to make that happen. So there's I think it can be effective at times with the game in this genre. Let's see what else. Another thing that annoyed me about the game was when you get low on health, you can't move. You literally move like a snail. And I'm just like, what world did they think that this was a good decision? You're already about to die. Let's make them not be able to move. And you're just dead. And so you can revive. People can revive you. You can revive them. If you don't have a full party, and each match, I should have mentioned this from the start. This is 4 players, so there's always 3 other players playing with you. If you don't have 3 other humans, they'll fill in with bots. And then when you join a game, and if there's more than one bot, you can cycle through the bots and choose which one you want to take over, which is kind of cool. Also,
I remember the bots in Left 4 Dead were hopeless.
They're not.
You
they're
couldn't
not
play
in
it.
this.
You could not play Left 4 Dead with
a bot
without 4 humans.
I'll say this: I actually ended up playing a little bit of it with just me and 3 bots, waiting for someone else to join, and they basically just follow you around. So they do kind of protect you more than if you have human characters. Like, you could manipulate the bots to basically, hover around you and use them as meat shields or whatever, which kind of worked. And
in Left 4 Dead, they just run off and get killed.
Right. They'll go off on their own a lot of times. Here, they stay close to you. And then another thing is you can get downed, as I said, and people can revive you. You can also, like, fall off the edge of a cliff and hang there. And somebody has to come over and like help you back up.
Oh yeah, that's happened. That happened in Left 4 Dead.
I forgot that.
Like if you felt like accidentally stepped off like the edge of a roof or something that was too high to survive the fall, they'd hang and someone had to go pull you up.
Yeah, you can't pull yourself up. I had forgotten that was in Left 4 Dead actually, but it's also in this.
It might have only been in 2, but I do remember having to do that. I do remember accidentally having that happen to me, like falling off the edge and someone had to come get me.
Yeah, and then the other thing I would say
that was a big one of the thing. My group and I we platinumed those games. Well, not platinum because we got all the achievements and some of the things were like go through all 4 levels like without anyone ever going down, and like that counts as being down. So a couple times we were on that run and someone stepped too close to the edge of something and fell off the edge and we had to start completely over. Like we lost. That's one of the reasons I don't like the game anymore.
Yeah,
is because like we basically ended up trying to do like a perfect run, and I think we eventually did it. But like it like afterwards, like we're done. We're playing something else tomorrow. We're never doing this again. I like co-op stuff. I just, I don't have a group of people to play that with as much because that group sort of dispersed as we got older and got lives.
Yep.
And
The other thing I would say, too, is that the co-op stuff in this, I don't think there's enough of it, where you're actually coordinating with each other to make progress.
Yeah, in Left 4 Dead, it was a very marked difference between, like, playing with randos and playing with my group. Like, my group could just tear, I mean, part of it because we knew each other well enough to not, we had a shorthand on a lot of things.
Yeah.
But you could feel the difference with playing with a good group or a group that was willing to communicate versus like just a random pickup group. And because once you knew the map, once you knew where
that makes a big difference,
where the things were going to happen.
You know where the monster closets are,
and you know where the witch is. Like, it's probably going to be because it was random. It
makes a big difference for sure. But what I was going to say is that there aren't a lot of opportunities in this to really work as a team. There are a couple of exceptions. One of them is you go onto this ship, and you need to go to the bottom of the ship and plant explosives. On the top floor of the ship, there are big machine gun turrets. So 2 people go down, set the explosives. The other 2 get on the turrets and try to defend the people who are trying to set the charges. That's one of them. Another part has a big howitzer cannon in the middle of this arena. And one person has to load the howitzer cannon and then fire it to basically close off this cave while everybody else defends them while they're doing that. And, of course, it takes, like, forever to load a shell in and blah, blah, blah. Those are the only 2 instances where I felt like there was actual teamwork that needed to be coordinated to make progress in the game, which was a bit of a disappointment to me. Again, my memory of Left 4 Dead is really fuzzy because, dude, it was like 2008 or something.
What?
Left 4 Dead. The first one.
Yeah, that sounds right.
I think.
It was a long time ago.
It was a long time ago. And so, again, my memory's a little fuzzy on the details of it. Some of this stuff could be exactly like Left 4 Dead, and I'm just not remembering it correctly. And as I said, the game is not crazy great looking. It's really gory, almost cartoonishly gory. But my biggest complaint of all, Matt, and this is something that can be easily fixed, is that, I don't know if you guys have been watching this, but I'm just mowing fools down. On the first setting, it is way too easy. Literally, the aim assist in this game, I have never seen an aim assist as generous as in this game. And I thought, okay, they're just doing that for the easiest setting. No, I jacked it up, and the aim assist was still insane. But the bigger part, it takes like 2 bullets to drop each zombie. And so after I played a little bit on the default setting, I was like, all right, this is a joke. I'm going to bump it up. And then it was impossible. Literally, we could not complete more than 1 chapter on the next difficulty setting. I didn't even try the 3rd one. So they need to find a better middle ground for the difficulty settings, or at least find a setting that's better tuned for the average player. Because what I played was either way too easy, and we were just walking through both acts, or it was way too difficult, and people got frustrated and quit.
I do remember the easy difficulty on Left 4 Dead. I could walk through that solo.
I think I probably could. I never tried it, but I think I probably could.
And then on regular, it's like, oh, you all need to pay attention. I mean, it didn't ever felt like normal. Never felt punishingly hard. Like, sounds like it was not as hard as what you're describing here.
Yeah,
but it was like no joke.
And every once in a while, like it'll just be unlucky. Like, you'll just be standing somewhere, and they'll drop 10 dudes behind you.
Yeah, that used to happen on Left 4 Dead. It's like,
so
okay,
it could
you've thrown like this many tanks at us or something. We don't have the ammo for this, basically. Right, yeah. So the director was mean sometimes.
And there is parts of that. There are times where I've run out of ammo, or there is also times where I've spawned into a game, and all I have was a machete. And I'm in the safe room, it won't let me buy a gun from the trunk, and I have to go out and start the mission with the machete. And that's how I found out that melee weapons are actually really effective. Like, I think I killed like 6 zombies with 1 swipe of the machete, and they went flying back like they got blasted by a cannon or whatever. So they're trying to make melee in this something that can actually get you through the game. I didn't use it enough to know that that's the case, but it's definitely more powerful than what I experienced in previous Left 4 Dead games. And so that's the PvE stuff. There's also PvP, which is crazy extensive. Did you ever play PvP in Left 4 Dead? Like, I never.
Very little. Like, we did enough to get the achievements we needed, but but first we tried it against like random public stuff, and then we realized that wasn't going to work because you'd have to play hundreds and hundreds of hours to get these situations to happen to arise you need for the achievement. So we got 4 other people we knew to come in and play the other side. We'd rig a game. So, like, we would intentionally set up like the situations we needed for the achievements.
Right.
Thank God for Xbox chat groups outside of the actual games.
Yeah.
So yeah, we never. None of us liked the actual PvP in earnest very much.
Okay. I didn't.
It always felt like the zombies had a distinct advantage.
Yeah, and this is like this as well. It's humans versus the zombies. Although it's not really, you don't really play as like the rank and file zombies. You play as like the bigger ones.
You play as the special ones.
Yep.
That's how Left 4 Dead was.
And there is a little.
Somebody's got to be stuck as the smoker. Sorry,
right?
Like, that was always the problem. Like,
yeah. There is a little bit of a twist to it. They've kind of mixed in some battle royale stuff. Like there are rotating safe zones that move that you can get into. But then they start mixing it up by putting like these like chemical like gas things over the safe zones. I'll say this. At playing as the humans, there's some strategy to it because you don't know where the poisonous gas is going to go. So some part of the strategy is once you get to an area that has a bunch of new weapons, grab them because you may not be able to come back to that area again because it may be covered in toxic gas. So that does add a little bit of a twist to it. The matches are best of 3. They also seem to take away some of the weapons from the humans. Like I don't remember ever seeing like a sniper rifle in the PvP, which makes sense. Like, you know, they're so OP as they are. It probably would be hard to balance if you included those weapons in there. I only played like a couple matches. I don't play Left 4 Dead or Back 4 Blood to play PvP. To me, it's all about
I actually
cooperative.
forgot that was a thing until you mentioned it.
Yeah, but they included that in the beta as well. It was a robust beta. I was surprised. So as I said, there were 2 full acts with 4 chapters in each one. I'm not sure how much is going to be in the final game to know sort of what percentage of the game I got to sample. I did have fun with it. Not as much fun as I thought I was going to have. I really thought that it had been long enough that I would be ready for something like this, to take it on full on. But after I played it for a couple hours, I started to lose interest a little bit. And I think part of that, too, could be the difficulty, because we couldn't make any headway at all on the one, and the other one was too easy. So the challenge wasn't right, and so I did kind of run out of steam on this a little bit. I did end up playing it a lot. Like, I finished both acts at least twice, like from beginning to end, and I jumped in a couple times to see what it was like if I was joining someone else's game just to see what happened. And that's where I ran into the, all I have is a machete, or, wow, there was one time I joined a game and it finished. And then I got credit for it, and I didn't do anything. I joined the game, the screen comes up, complete, and then I get like the points, didn't even do anything. You can see here on the B-roll, this is before a match where you're selecting the cards that they just randomly deal to you. You have to choose between 2 or 3 cards. Sometimes they just give you 1, and you just got to take what they give you. I assume
corruption cards are bad.
No.
No,
it's just the way that they're labeling them, basically. The corruption cards, I think, are just more of like buffs than sometimes team-wide or sometimes just for you. And then you can see all the other cards here. Sometimes it just gives you more stamina, faster reloads, more health. It'll give you a combat knife, so you don't have to buy one once you get into the game. Some of them will boost your health, your whole team's health. So the card system, I think, adds a little bit to it. And now you're seeing the vendor here, what you can actually buy when you're in match. And you can't just buy like the whole arsenal of guns. They only give you like a couple options to buy. And I don't know why they do that, but it does keep you from just like making a ton of money and then just buying this gun that just wipes everything out. You don't need it anyway. I walked through it with pretty much any gun that I found just lying around. But that's Back 4 Blood. Any other questions you might have, Matt?
Not really. Seems pretty straightforward.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty much exactly what you thought it was going to be. It'll be interesting to see how this reviews, because I feel like if people like us review it, who've been playing games for a really long time, I don't think it's going to do that well. I think if you have someone in their 20s...
Yeah, if someone was like 10 when Left 4 Dead 2 came out, like maybe they're...
I think they'll like it more, yeah. For sure. Because they haven't been burnt out on the genre already like some of us have. And for people like us, I think we'd be open to it if it actually did some stuff that maybe was a little different. And it doesn't really, other than kind of the card system. So Back 4 Blood, again, and let me get this correct... the open beta opens for everyone on Thursday, August 12th. So you guys can all jump in and play it for yourselves. I may jump back in if this new beta actually has new areas to play. But I don't know if that's going to be the case or not. They haven't really said if it's just going to be the same stuff everybody played in the not really open beta this past weekend. Because the only way you could get it in was an invite from WB Games or by going and watching a Twitch stream, which I thought was pretty cool. That's the first time I've ever done something like that. Like, Twitch is a pretty flexible platform. Like, if you're working at Twitch and you're trying to figure out ways to work with publishers, there's a lot of ways to do it.
Yeah, I mean, they did. I can't remember what it was, but there was a game that happened with before that I also had no interest in playing. But it was like a thing you watched enough of the stream, they sent you a code.
Our chat has turned into a discussion on healthcare.
Yeah, I saw that.
In the United States versus Europe. It's funny. That's all it is right now. I don't know if anyone even listened to our impressions of Back 4 Blood, because it's all just people.
I haven't seen anyone mention Back 4 Blood, no.
Yeah. Someone was talking about sports for a second, but that's about it. Look, it's a big topic.
Yeah.
It can ruin your life, so I can understand why people are talking about it.
It's almost as repetitive as the Left 4 Dead games.
Well, isn't it funny, though, exactly. Isn't it funny, though, how, somebody has good insurance and they have to go into the hospital, and you still have to do a GoFundMe for them?
Mm-hmm. I
mean, that's what happened with Marcus's heart attack.
Yep.
They had great insurance, and I still set up a GoFundMe for them because they were going to go broke.
Mm-hmm.
And we may have to do that again, by the way, for Marcus's cancer treatment. And if we do, just make sure you're following me on Twitter at Dinfire, and I'll be sure to post it there so everyone can contribute and help them out because, man, going through rounds and rounds of chemo.
Yeah, you want to see some fun, awkward interview stuff, go look up interviews where people ask the head of GoFundMe how he feels about basically running a company that exists to taking blood money to help people not die from our medical system.
Yeah,
and his deflections on that are fascinating.
Oh, I'm surprised he doesn't say it sucks, but I have to run a business. But
yeah, I mean, he kind of says something like that, but he does it in a little. He doesn't embrace the fact that
it's blood money.
Yeah, he doesn't. He doesn't embrace the fact that you're basically covering a gap that shouldn't exist.
Yeah,
he's just like, oh no, we just provide a service, kind of like, yeah, you provide a service that shouldn't need to exist.
Shouldn't exist. But I would be interested to see what percentage of their money comes from medical GoFundMes.
From what I've seen, a fair amount.
Yeah, most, I would say, at least more than 50%. Because the other thing too is that those GoFundMes tend to do far better than the other ones. People are willing. It's just funny. We've been conditioned to, went to the hospital, now you're broke.
Yeah. If only there was a system where we could take the money we don't spend otherwise and put it into a giant pool, and then people could use that money to get medical care.
Yeah. That doesn't bankrupt.
If only another country in the world had figured that out already.
God bless America. Yep. So there you go.
Welcome to Politics Face.
The way the industry's going right now, it may have to turn until later on in the month. It's just the way it is. It's so slow right now. But anyway, that's
also look, it's on our minds because our friends are in medical trouble,
and they're both going to go through it.
Yeah.
Yep. And I don't think either one of them works for a huge corporation where they'll have great medical insurance either.
Probably not.
Yeah. So it's a concern for all Americans.
At most, Adam's working for NBC Universal. We know how that goes.
Yes. Yes, we do. So anyway, that's Back 4 Blood. Again, the beta for everyone kicks off Thursday, August 12th. If you completely tuned out my entire discussion about that game, talking about health insurance in the chat.
And who can blame you?
Yeah, I don't blame you either. All right, let's move on.
When the zombie apocalypse happens, it's purely going to be because everyone refuses to go to the doctor.
Yep. All right, we're going to talk next about Nintendo and the Switch.
I Am Legend actually refers to the one man with no medical debts.
Yeah.
He is only a legend.
He's the only one. Yep. We're going to talk about Switch because something happened this week that has been different from the first 5 years that the Switch has been on the market. Essentially, every quarter, Nintendo has just reported amazing financials, especially over the last year because of COVID and Animal Crossing, people staying in. A lot of people bought their hardware.
Valorant. That's Z Electro. Valorant was the game I was thinking of that you watched Twitch. That was the first one I heard of where you watched Twitch and they sent you a
riot shooter.
Yeah.
Yeah. I forgot about that, actually. But you're right. Yeah, that is also... I wouldn't be surprised if that happens a lot.
Because, no, it's a good trick.
Oh, dude. Yeah. When you went to the page for Back 4 Blood, every stream just had thousands and thousands of people because they're all sitting there. And, there's hardly any chat happening. because people just went in, joined, and then just sat there. And I actually like walked away from my computer, and like I even had like it was in a tab. Here's a pro tip for you for in the future: you don't even have to watch a stream. Just open it in a tab, and that's all you got to do. You don't have to have that tab open or anything. As long as it's running in one of your tabs, you're getting credit for the tab.
Yeah, I do that for because like I don't like Twitch doesn't blow up too well on my 4K TV.
Mm-hmm.
So, but for like the Game Awards and stuff, they do all the drops. So I just put it in my browser and let it sit there, and I watch it on the actual TV. And so, and I get all the drops on my computer later. So
it's pretty cool what they can do with Twitch.
And they get 2 views. So.
Right, yeah. Everybody wins.
That's how Keeley gets all those damn views. We got 3 instances running to get all the drops.
I mean, that may all be according to plan, Matt.
I mean, whatever it takes.
Exactly. So anyway, back to Nintendo. It has just been on a torrid run financially. The Switch has been a smash hit. Nintendo has been unable to make enough to satisfy demand, essentially for the first 5 years it's been available. Mm-hmm. There was a slight lull, 2 years into it?
Oh, yeah, about 2, yeah. And before the pandemic, it was pretty plentiful to find one, and then the pandemic started, and everybody bought a damn Switch because it was the one that made the most sense to get. And
and it went right back.
They all disappeared again.
Yep, hand to mouth at retail anyway. Well, this quarter is the first quarter that Nintendo is going to have to report, or did report, less than flattering results from sales of Switch. I'll just go over them very quickly. The Switch Lite, Matt, really seems to be the one that is taking the brunt of this. Its sales were down 56% year over year for the quarter. Mm-hmm. That's a lot.
Yeah.
Almost 60% down.
Yeah. I mean, part of that, I'm sure, is that that was a big seller in the early days of the pandemic. Everybody wanted a handheld to play. The whole family's stuck at home. You want all the kids to have their own Switches. It's a lot cheaper to buy them lights, and you don't have to give up the TV for it. That makes sense to me that there would be a big spike in light sales. But this feels like a drop bigger than just that self-correcting for the end of that situation.
And that is something we should keep in mind, is that this time last year, it wasn't Nintendo's boom. The boom was Q1.
Yeah.
Still did really well in Q2. And this is what we're comparing it to, Q2. Mm-hmm. So it was like those pandemic sales. So I think a lot of these numbers should be taken with a little bit of a grain of salt.
Yeah, there's no Animal Crossing to push push these this year.
So Switch Lite sales down 56% year over year. Overall, Switch sales fell 22% year over year.
I mean, you are hitting who doesn't have this thing already territory.
Exactly. Nintendo is still forecasting for 25.5 million sold for the year. Another thing, too, if you're a Nintendo stockholder or are interested in being a Nintendo stockholder, I don't know if this happened already. If it did happen already, it's not going to help you. But if it hasn't, you might want to check. Nintendo is planning on buying back 1.5% of its stock. And when companies do that, the stock price goes up, up. So if it hasn't happened yet, I'm not 100% sure, and you're interested in Nintendo stocks, you might want to go buy it because it's pretty much guaranteed to pop up at least a couple percentage points here in the very near future. Matt, what is happening here? Is it as simple as everybody has a Switch now?
I think part of it is, yeah. And sanity is sort of returning to the market in that regard. Maybe also because people are laser focused on getting a PS5, so no one's spending money on Switch hardware right now. It's just not the hot thing. Maybe the OLED will revitalize some of that, but I don't know.
That was my next question. What is the OLED going to do?
I don't know.
If anything.
I really don't know. It's not enough of an upgrade to buy one if you already have a Switch, I don't think. But you're sort of left wondering who's left to buy this thing. I'm sure there are hardcore people who will buy it just to upgrade to a better screen or whatever, but I'm certainly not going to get it because it doesn't do me any good.
I ended up getting one, Matt. Just literally.
Oh, right, because you were able to actually pre-order one without...
4 hours after they went on sale.
Yeah, that should tell you something.
I just went to, I think was it Target or Best Buy? I can't remember. But they had been on sale for 4 or 5 hours already. And I hadn't realized that they had been on sale for 4 or 5 hours. I thought they had just gone on sale. So I went to the website, and they had the red and blue one available. And so I just pre-ordered it. I'm like, even if I don't want this, I can figure out something to do with it, or I can sell it on eBay, or I can give it to an uncle or an aunt who's looking for a Switch for their kids over Christmas or whatever. Or maybe I do want to keep it. I didn't know. But I just knew that buying it was not going to be a stupid idea. Although now I'm starting to wonder, Matt, because once I bought it, I realized that it had been on sale already for 4 hours. Mm-hmm. And this major retailer still had them available 4 hours after they went on sale. And so that was the first kind of red flag for me with Switch, Matt, where I was like, okay, wait a minute. Like, maybe things are really starting to cool off. And then that is followed up with the financial report from Nintendo. I struggle to think that the OLED model is going to provide much of a significant bump. I really think that it's just going to turn into the Switch that people buy if they're buying it for the first time.
Yeah, like I wouldn't think so. The other thing that surprised me was I was at Target the other day, and they had those Zelda Game & Watch things.
Really?
Just sitting there.
Did you buy one?
No, I don't care. But I was just surprised that they weren't sold out. You know, like, that seemed like something that would instantly disappear, considering the fandom.
Yeah, you would think so.
But like, they had like 4 of them.
I mean, I figured they would never make it into stores.
Same.
I figured people would order them online, and they'd never even make it to a shelf.
Yeah.
Huh. That's interesting. I don't think it relates to...
They're right next to a whole bunch of Switch Lights.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So you saw anecdotal evidence that Switch Lite is...
There's always been Switch Lights there for a while now. Not the main... The main Switch goes in and out.
I mean, I'll be perfectly honest with you, Matt. I don't know why anyone would buy a Switch Lite. Like, it's a little cheaper, but...
Yeah, I mean, I don't know either. Like, I feel like it... You know, I have friends who have them, but, like, I don't understand it in the sense that, like it
you're
seems
getting
to rob
half of the system.
You're getting half the system, and
you're also 3/4 of the price.
And you're also sort of robbing it of, like, you know, you don't get Joy-Cons, you don't get like, it just, I don't know. It seems like a hobbled version of the system.
And for the price, it's
smaller screen, harder.
Yeah, for the price, it shouldn't be as hobbled as it is.
No, probably not. But if you don't have, you don't want to play it on a TV, I guess it's fine. But like at this point, like even if you don't want to play it on TV, I feel like the OLED is your best bet if you don't have one already.
Yeah, I mean, I would recommend people buy the new model.
I could certainly see someone upgrading to the OLED from the Lite.
Yep.
You know,
for sure, because then you get the docked mode, the console mode.
Yeah, you get a lot more stuff out of it that way.
I just wonder if
it's expensive, but
it is. I just wonder if anyone's gonna do that.
I don't really see it being burning the charts up. Even the stuff I just looked up, a couple of Target and Best Buy and stuff, and they don't have pre-orders available, but they do say coming soon, not sold out.
Well, you got to remember it launches October 8th.
Yeah,
it's coming. It is coming soon. So it's only about.
Like, I'm sure it's not going to be, like, easy to walk into a store and get one on October 8th or whatever, but it doesn't sound like it's going to be an endless drought like the PS5 has been.
Yeah. Matt,
that might just be because they can produce more.
Right.
Because they're not trying to make, I do trust Nintendo to produce hardware in larger numbers than what Sony's managed with the PS5, but I also think demand will be much lower.
Well, we'll get into this in a little bit, but there's also the question of... Are there components to build the stuff? Mm-hmm. That's become a real thing for a lot of people who are trying to produce hardware right now, is just getting the components to build it. And when you're Nintendo, Microsoft, Sony, and you're making big orders, you're more likely to get the components.
Oh, yeah.
So that...
Wait till we start running out of the rare earth elements we need to make those chips.
Right. Then what happens?
That'll happen in our lifetimes.
Will it?
Probably.
They'll have to find another way to make the chips.
At the very least, it'll be vastly more expensive to mine that stuff, and that you'll see that reflected in the price of electronics.
Yep. So, Matt...
PS9 better be something you inhale, because I don't think we can afford the silicon at that point.
Yeah. So, looking at the release calendar for Switch for the rest of the year, there's Metroid Dread, obviously, which is coming also very soon, on the same day as the OLED in a couple months. And there's not a lot after that for this year.
No.
What do you think is going to save Nintendo's lunch at this point? Or is there anything? Is this just the natural cycle, the natural curve of... It is. It's been 5 years.
Yeah, I think it's the natural curve of everyone right now. Like, the whole end of the year is looking pretty soft in general. Yeah. I mean, obviously, I'm very excited about Metroid Dread because it's Metroid.
Yep.
But... I don't, as much as I love Metroid, I don't really look at Metroid as a system seller.
Yeah, me either. I think it may penetrate the install base more than prior Metroids, though.
Yeah.
I think it'll sell better than most Metroid games.
But I don't see a lot of people who don't have a Switch yet seeing like, oh, Metroid's out, I got to get that system now. Like, I don't think that's a thing that happens.
I think it would have had to have been a Prime game.
Yeah, I think if we want to really see how the OLED's going to do, we got to wait for Breath of the Wild 2.
Yeah.
Like, that's what's going to move systems if someone doesn't have one already, or maybe decides they want to play Breath of the Wild 2 on the new system with a better screen.
They'll also make a limited edition version of the OLED for it.
Of course.
But but I don't see any relief in immediate sight for Nintendo.
No,
as far as software is concerned.
I mean, Zelda next year will definitely help.
Yeah, for sure.
And whatever else they have up their sleeve. We might get the Mario Odyssey follow-up finally. It's about time for that.
Yeah.
Maybe later in the year. But, and God, whatever other, Arceus or whatever, whatever other Pokemon nonsense they have planned.
Well, they have the 2 reworks coming this year.
Yeah.
I mean, basically, that's what it's banking on for this year, are those 2 remakes of old Pokemon games.
And Splatoon.
Is Splatoon coming this year?
Not this year, but Splatoon will be next year.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of games for next year.
Yeah, got Pikmin 4 is still hiding out there
Bayonetta,
somewhere.
I mean, there's tons of stuff. Metroid Prime 4, which I think will be the launch game for the next
Shin
console.
Megami Tensei is this year.
Yep.
Which I don't think that's a big.
That's not a needle mover. Yeah,
No.
definitely not.
I mean, I'm kind of interested.
Well, yeah, of course. I mean, we'll play it, but it's not.
But at the same time, sort of, even I look at that and I'm just like, oh my god,
do I want to do this?
It's like,
you do. You start thinking back to the other games, and you're like, this is like 100 and some hours.
Is this going to be any different than what I've already done? No, it's like it was like watching the Jimquisition on like the Samurai Warriors, the new Samurai Warriors game. And I'm just like, why do you keep doing this to yourself?
Because they're going to be
it's
bad.
It's the same thing. They actually had a really good point where they said that that game doesn't have characters; it has weapons, and you equip the characters to the weapons. Which I was like, that's really true. Like, you don't have different characters that are like individuals. You just have a bunch of characters that use the same bow or the same sword, and they all play exactly the same with slightly different hats.
Yeah,
it's like, and that's kind of Shin Megami Tensei in ways, especially because it's all the same. Demons,
all the demons
for the most
are basically
part.
the same.
It's just like you're doing the same thing over and like if you like that, great. Like if you just want another shot of demon Pokemon, like it's going to deliver.
Yeah.
But some of us are sort of looking at this like, oh, like a full price game. I'm going to play it for like 2 hours to confirm that it's the same fucking game as the last 2 games. And
I mean, let's be honest. The Switch is overdue for a price cut.
Oh yeah.
This might finally be the sign that Nintendo needs to cut the price of at least the OG Switch a little bit. And maybe it coincides perfectly with the release of the OLED.
Yeah, and it starts to feel like, I know we've talked about how the light would stick around and the old one would go away and the OLED would be the new standard. It's like, maybe they dropped the light at this point. Like,
based upon the way sales are going, it might lead them in that direction, although I'm guessing that decision's already been made one way or another at this point.
But like maybe it makes more sense to have the lower price Switch be the OG model.
It kind of does. Yeah. But
because at least that way you're not buying like a hobbled version of the game of the console.
Just I would find it hard to believe that Nintendo would shut down one of its manufacturing lines, or have separate manufacturing,
especially in favor of something that's so similar to what the other thing they're selling.
Right, which means I think the lines that are currently building the OG Switch are just going to be updated to build the OLED Switch.
It could be but they did the one time they did do something similar was when they did the new 3DS and kept doing the DSi.
That's true.
That was pretty similar. Even I had a little trouble telling the difference between those things once in a while.
The 3DS line got really confusing.
Got very weird.
Yeah. And then they started throwing in
not
like
the
2DS
DSi, the 3DS
stuff, and I'm just like, what?
Yeah, there was the DSi and then the 3DS, and they did the new 3DS and kept making the original 3DS, and then there was still the DSi was still kind of available at the time. And they all had the same form factors.
Which didn't
the
fold.
2DS, which didn't
it was
fold.
just like a tablet for kids, basically.
Yeah, if you want something that will get the screen scratched in one day, go ahead and get a 2DS. With a bizarre form factor. Like, that thing was one of the weirdest looking Nintendo consoles since the Virtual Boy. It looked like
a knockoff.
Yeah.
It looked like some weird,
third
party from China made.
Yeah, it looked like something you'd buy like for $20 in a
flea market.
Street market or something, and like it would play like Super Mario Bros. Or something. It's like, oh, what is this? Why are they purple? I don't get it.
So you're right. Like, Nintendo has kind of manufactured multiple things at once that were variations on the same base hardware. But I think when you're talking about consoles and not handhelds, it's a little different. I would be surprised if they continued manufacturing the OG Switch once the OLED comes to market. They also want more money for the hardware, which they can get more. So my guess is they cut the price of the OG Switch until they're out of inventory. And my guess is the price cut is like $50. I don't think it's going to be like a full $100. And then the question becomes, what do they do with the Switch Lite? I do think they'll keep manufacturing those. I also think that maybe they drop the price of it to make it more of an impulse buy for parents looking for something to babysit their kids while they're driving or commuting or whatever, something to keep them quiet. But yeah, I have no interest in a Lite, and I think it's starting to appear that most adults do not. And that's maybe why the sales are tanking for more versus the console version. It also kind of flies in the face of the data that we've got that says 50% of Switch owners only play like handheld mode. Mm-hmm. I don't know if that's the case now, or if people are just like, well, why would I not just pay an extra $100 or whatever it is to get both a console and a handheld? Maybe that's a little more likely.
Maybe a lot of people play with that thing where they prop it up and play with the Joy-Cons at the table more than we think. Yeah, it's like
I don't think that's the case, but we'll see. I do think
you haven't been to a rooftop party where an NBA 2K game broke out like that. It was not a.
I do think that this is the first sign, though, that Nintendo is going to have to do something. It has just been this steady increase for 5 years, and now they're either flat or they're going down. They've hit the apex of the curve. And
I think the clincher is going to be what Breath of the Wild 2 does.
Yeah.
We'll see if that can revive.
And when it comes out, I think, will be a big
If all we get is a spike of software sales from that and the hardware sales don't really move or improve, then I think you're in the situation where it's like Nintendo's got to put a successor out the following year.
I'm wondering if Nintendo now regrets the Switch OLED model.
I don't know.
Like announcing it.
Mm-hmm.
You would think it would have had at least an idea that the sales were starting to slump a little bit. You would think retailers would be like, no, we're good. We have plenty of stock. And maybe, but if that's the case, it didn't keep Nintendo from announcing it still.
No, and we'll see like what happens with like, I don't know, like it's just hard to see what else is going to, there's no reason to think that there's like this untapped pocket of audience that still hasn't heard of or knows about or has access to a Switch.
Yeah.
Like you're hitting a point where the hardware sales are going to be expected to drop, and at that point the question becomes, what do they want to do? The other problem with the price drop idea is like Nintendo just doesn't really do that. Like they didn't even they took forever to drop the price on the Wii U, for God's sake.
I don't think they ever cut the price of Wii U.
Yeah, I don't think
they ever did.
I eventually got one on like a Black Friday sale for $100 off, but they never officially dropped.
It wasn't
the price
Nintendo's
on that
MSRP. Yeah. I don't think it ever did drop the price ever, which is crazy.
Because that thing was dead in the water.
Yeah,
like it was.
They never even did like the let's just drop the price and get rid of all these consoles in our warehouse that's just been sitting there. Like they did nothing.
Yeah, they took them back.
Yeah, they recalled
back,
them, and then we're selling them on Nintendo.com.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I thought about buying a backup gamepad.
Yeah,
just in case
they're going to die.
Because one day that thing dies, and you don't have another way to play anything on that system.
My Wii U is like immaculate because I hardly played it.
Which is one of the reasons I have always banged that drum of like rescue everything from the Wii U, because one day we're not going to be able to play this thing anymore.
Yeah, I've been watching this one guy.
All that's left is Xenoblade Chronicles X. Get on with it, people. Like we're even getting Fatal Frame at this point.
Yeah, I've been watching this guy on YouTube. His whole thing is he buys a Switch, and then he goes on Facebook Marketplace and offers to trade it with people. And these people literally will give him like their entire childhood. They'll give him all their old consoles, all their old games, all their old controllers for a Switch. So he will spend $200, $300 on a Switch, and he will get stuff that's worth like $5,000 back from these people. I don't know if these people are stupid or they just don't think it's worth the hassle of selling each one of those things.
Some of it, like when I worked in the old indie game store back in 98, 99, that was a common thing. Like when we would get the new systems, like especially the Dreamcast.
People bring in everything they got.
They'd bring in like, and these were like lower income family. Like these were like the families that like couldn't afford to drop out cash for these. And there was a whole people don't remember a lot of the time that like, there's a whole sub-market of like lower income families who are just buying and playing the last generation's consoles because that's what becomes affordable and available, especially in a used market.
Yep.
And we had a lot of our customers were for that market. And sometimes though they'd come in and they'd just unload everything. I remember this one kid desperately wanted a Dreamcast, and he and his mom came in and they traded in like 50 Genesis games and a Genesis and a PlayStation 1 and like a bunch of PlayStation 1 games, and it barely all added up to like in store credit to like $200 or for wherever we're charging for the Dreamcast, $199, yeah. And like and he didn't even have enough for another game out of credit, so she bought him like Soul Calibur or something, and like they went, they went out, and it was a stack almost as up to my head.
That's what this guy's doing,
and like
he's taking advantage of people who.
And the store made like hundreds off of it, and sometimes people just don't know what they have. One time, a guy came in with a Neo Geo, 2 controllers, and 10 games. And I wasn't there for this, but the guy who was working there offered him $100 for it, and he took it. Oh my god! We turned around and sold it for like $5,000 on eBay. The owner of the store was so thrilled.
I bet
you could not imagine. Yeah. Like, he had no idea what he had.
I mean, that's basically what this guy's doing, because they'll come to him. He'll hand him a Switch. It's not even like packaged. It's like, here's the Switch, here's the dock, here's an HDMI cable, and they will open their trunk and they will have like 2 GameCubes, an N64, 3 Nintendo handhelds, in the software libraries for all of them. Like literally like $5,000-$6,000 worth of stuff that some guy just gave him for like a scratched up Switch. I'm not telling you to do it, but
although I'm thinking about it now.
If you're hurting for cash, it's a racket. And he said that he gets more offers on Facebook Marketplace than he can even vet. He said just hundreds and hundreds of people are like, I'll give you this for your Switch or whatever. And he's like, you spend like a day just sorting through the offers to figure out which one you want to pick.
Yep.
So the reason I brought this up is because we were talking about, maybe the Switch market is soft. There are still people out there who want one like really badly.
They just can't drop down
the money, the cash to do it. Yeah. So maybe if they do drop the price of it, maybe it gets a nice little bump again. I am starting to believe that the OLED kind of mid-step is a mistake. I just don't understand who it's for and what it's for. You're at the 5-year mark and you release this kind of sidestep, this parallel piece of hardware. That's not something that Nintendo typically does. A lot of times it will just find a cheaper way to make it, like with the GameCube. They took out like the digital port. So only the DOL 001 now has a digital port, and all the later GameCubes don't have it. The Wii, they took out like, what did they took out, was it the Wi-Fi stuff or something from the Wii, I think?
Yeah, they took something weird out.
They took out like the Wi-Fi antenna or something. You couldn't.
Same with and the GameCube, they took the digital port out. Which
so
I had to return a GameCube because of that. Because
right.
My launch one broke, it stopped working, so I went and got another one for Best Buy. I got it home and I couldn't plug in my component cable, and
so
I had to go
Nintendo
back and find one.
Is no stranger to doing this stuff, but usually it takes stuff away to make it cheaper to manufacture, and maybe it drops the price. In this case, it's doing this more expensive model now that functionality wise.
Yeah, if it had a power boost, I would think about it, but it's not. It's not that.
It would be a no-brainer, I think, if it boosted the power. So I think this is the beginning of the downward curve for Switch. It's the cycle. It's the way things work. Everyone has a Switch now, or most people have a Switch. There are some that are still looking for them. I just think this might end up being a mistake. And to your point, I would not be surprised if these numbers continue to trend in this direction, if we do get like the next Switch, like next holiday season. It's also making me think that I maybe should sell the OLED as soon as I get it. Because I don't know if it's going to be a viable product for all that long, to be honest with you. I think probably in a year's time we'll at least get an announcement of the next Switch. I just really think that like some games like Mario Kart 9, Metroid Prime 4, I think games like that are being teed up right now for the next real hardware revision. And so
I definitely believe Metroid Prime 4 will be hybrid.
Yep.
Between the current Switch and the next one.
Yeah. I kind of thought that might be the case for this until we found out about the OLED. It just came out of nowhere. Yeah, I thought that maybe it would be a Super Switch, Nintendo Switch or whatever, and we get that with Breath of the Wild 2 early next year. Instead, they dropped the OLED model. Sense. Yeah, that would make too much sense. Absolutely. So anyway, it's been quite a run for Nintendo, people. We're not bagging on them here. Like, this is the way the industry works. It's a 5-year cycle typically, and if you're really good and really popular,
even with these drops, I'm sure they're happy to be where they are.
Yeah, Absolutely. I mean, the Switch has been a bigger success than Nintendo could have ever
Yeah,
imagined.
you're just into the stratosphere now instead of orbit.
Right.
Basically.
Yeah. So it's not like we're talking bad. This is just the way that the console cycles work, and Nintendo's at the end of its cycle. And I think it is different now how you manage those end of cycles because, as we've seen with PS4 to PS5 and Xbox One to Series, there's not that chop-off point anymore. And I think that's one thing that Nintendo's going to have to get right, is that I can't have all this software for Switch and have it be worthless whenever the next platform is released. So that's something that Nintendo hasn't really done before, that it's going to have to figure out. It's kind of fallen into this pattern of, okay, we'll take all the old games from this other platform and we'll spend a bunch of money on remaking them for this new one. You don't have to do that anymore. So it'll be interesting to see if Nintendo's next platform is backwards compatible with everything. I think it will be.
I think it has to be.
It kind of has to be in 2021 or whatever year it ends up being released.
As soon as you move to digital purchasing, you have to support that library going forward.
Yep.
There's no way around it.
Yep. So that's the latest on Nintendo and Switch. I would highly recommend that you hold off on buying the OLED version unless like your Switch is broken or you haven't bought one and there's some game this year coming out that you really want to play. I can't imagine what that would be. But if that's the case, then maybe you pick up the OLED. But
yeah, it's like maybe you're super excited for Metroid Dread, but if you're excited for Metroid Dread, I can't imagine you don't already have a Switch. So.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, like as you said earlier, I don't think it's going to be a system seller. So
like even Metroid's my favorite Nintendo franchise, but even I went in on the Switch before that. Give me a break.
Yeah, I'll keep you guys updated on what I end up doing with my Switch OLED.
We've been waiting for Metroid Prime 4 so long.
I know.
That was in that first presentation.
I know.
The logo.
Yeah. And
it's not even going to make the system.
And really. For years, it was always in our most anticipated of whatever. Mm-hmm. And then once we found out that it had been
in the end, we're not even going to play it on the Switch, probably. We're going to play it on whatever the next one is.
Whatever it is. That's my guess, too. Yeah. So anyway, that's the latest on Nintendo. Again, I would hold off on getting the OLED model. I'll let you guys know what I end up deciding to do with my OLED. Obviously, if I decide to keep it, I'll bring it here on the show, and I'll open it up for you guys. You guys can all check it out. That might be what I end up doing anyway, just because on launch day, I want to be able to show it to you guys so you guys can decide if you want one or not. 70%, that's probably what I'm going to do. Mm-hmm. And then I'll go on Facebook Marketplace, and I'll trade my old Switch for a gaggle of retro games that I can flip, which I'll never have the time to do anyway. Maybe I'll just get them and just save them for my retirement like I'm doing with all my stuff. I do wonder if when I'm ready to retire, if it will be such a pain in the butt to me to sell a bunch of stuff on eBay that I'll just not want to do it.
I mean, it already is for me now. So.
I know. Yeah. I mean, some stuff is worth it. Like some of my handhelds I have that are, Pokemon Center or whatever, like that stuff's worth a lot of money. Yeah, that's worth it. Do I want to go game by game, though, and sell that stuff when I'm 65? I don't know.
I'm already trying to parcel out a bunch of Transformers stuff I don't want anymore, but at a certain point you hit it where it's like, that's not worth it.
Right, exactly. I'll be the sucker on Facebook Marketplace trading in all my stuff to get like the PS9 or whatever it is by then. Although it may not even be 9 at that point. It may only be like 8 because these generations are just stretching out, unless you're Nintendo. But all these other generations are stretching out like 7 to 10 years at this point. So we may only get like a couple more consoles before we retire. It's pretty crazy to think about. But anyway, that's the latest on Nintendo. It's time to move on. We're going to talk next about XCOM, Marvel XCOM. We were really excited when we found out about this, Matt, that Firaxis was working on a new XCOM game with the Marvel license. Immediately my mind went crazy. My heart went aflutter thinking about, hey, here's this kind of faceless franchise that I've really enjoyed playing for a really long time. But I really have no affinity for its universe or its lore. I couldn't even tell you like one character from the XCOM franchise. Could you?
I mean, there's the guy who runs everything, who sounds like the Colonel from that thing.
Yeah.
I think it's the guy. I think it's Neil Ross. I think it's the guy who does the Codex voice for Mass Effect.
Oh,
but I don't remember character. Yeah, well, because you create your own characters
for the most part. But even like the characters that are involved in the plot, like I don't remember
It's not a plot-driven game,
It's
really.
not.
It's more of a build your base and shoot the things and
Yeah.
get furious at what 92% probability really means.
Right.
When it comes down
at least
to it.
in their world, what
Yeah.
92% means. So we only kind of knew that Firaxis was working on the game, and then this week we finally got some first details. And Matt, they were not especially encouraging. What we learned this week is that although it does have the Marvel license, like other XCOM games, you'll be creating your own superheroes in this. Mm-hmm. So you will not be playing as like your favorite Marvel characters. Instead, you'll be creating characters. And then they said even the non-playable characters will not be the popular superheroes that everyone associates with Marvel. Matt, is this a smart decision?
I don't know. I don't know why that would be. I understand why you want us to create our own characters because the XCOM formula kind of demands that. I don't know why you wouldn't have them working with recognizable characters beyond, because I guess it's supernatural based, and the guy definitely said there was going to be vampires. So it sounds like you're kind of dealing with like kind of a Marvel Knights thing. But like the idea that you would be doing that, but you still wouldn't like be interacting with Blade or Ghost Rider or Moon Knight or even Daredevil, like the characters that are generally associated with those things, is odd. Because the thing is, like, people do want to play as these characters. The license is valuable, but the value of the license does tend to kind of be tied to who you're allowed to play.
That's my question, Matt. Why would you pay for this license if you're not going to use it to its fullest?
Well, I need to see more of what the game actually is, because I feel like maybe he's talking about early. I don't know. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me, because the other thing that I keep thinking of is there's two other examples of Marvel games that tried to focus on non-pre-existing characters, and they are both disasters.
Yeah.
And that was Rise of the Imperfects.
Yep, I remember that.
That EA kind of arena fighting Power Stone game, which introduced a bunch of new characters that no one remembers or cares about. And then X-Men Destiny, which did have all the characters from X-Men in it, but you could only play one of 3 nobodies that was newly created for the game, whose powers were like kind of railroaded into certain archetypes over the course of the game. And X-Men Destiny famously being the last thing Silicon Knights made before they got shut down by the Unreal lawsuit.
Yep.
And then I believe X-Men Destiny was recalled and destroyed. The unsold copies had to be destroyed because it was using unlicensed tech in it from Unreal. But I actually pulled that game out and loaded it up a few months ago because I was reminded of it. And that game's still terrible. Like the fact that you can't, the fact that you cannot play the X-Men is bizarre. Like, what do you think we're here for, people?
That's what my point about this game.
And like, I understand the idea of making it more of a create your own in terms of these characters in XCOM, because you have to be free to kill them, you have to be free to do weird things with them. But to not have them be involved, at least in sort of like a Midnight Sun sort of task force, like the Doctor Strange is sending you out to do shit or something. Like, it's very strange that you would divorce it completely from all the recognizable Marvel stuff and just sort of tell me it's set in the Marvel universe somehow, or it's like, well, what? How?
That's what it feels like this game is going to be to me. It's
certainly what he seems to be what he said.
Yeah.
It's a very strange angle to take on it.
It just doesn't make any sense to me at all, creatively or financially.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, why would you pay for this license if you're not going to use it? Like,
I don't know. It sounds like maybe they got like a cheaper version of the license that is a limited use thing. Like, you can use the universe, but you can't use the characters. Or something like that.
Why would you pay for that?
That's to have Marvel on your
on the
title, I guess.
Yeah.
But there are definitely, there's certain like, things have changed a lot because Marvel and Disney have sort of reconsolidated their ownership of all these characters in various ways. But like, for a while there were things where it's like, oh, if you don't have this license, you can't use Daredevil. And so, but you can use this character. Like, different characters were related to certain licenses and not others. So if you want to use this one character, you have to buy a separate license to use that character. But if you want to use this other character instead, they're included with the license you already bought for Spider-Man or whatever. So you can use that character.
Mm-hmm.
And that has changed here and there over the years. Certainly, Capcom ran into that problem when they made Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, and suddenly Marvel decided they didn't want them to allow them to use any X-Men or Fantastic Four characters because they were owned by Sony. The movie rights were controlled by Sony and Fox, and they didn't want to promote those characters anymore, which is why Infinite has such a weird roster without some of the staples of the Marvel vs. Capcom series. And then, of course, Ultimate Alliance 3 came out, and there's Wolverine right on the front of the cover, and all the they got a Fantastic Four expansion and X-Men expansion. Everything's back to normal now that Marvel has those movie rights back.
Yep.
So that seems to be less of a problem now. But this, I don't have an explanation for this. Beyond, I get why you'd want to create a character team for the XCOM formula, but I don't know why you wouldn't couch that in your working, kind of like what the DC Universe Online game does, where it's you are creating your own character, but you are working hand in hand with the established characters.
With the real superheroes, yeah. I mean, that's the allure.
Right.
Of having a license.
I mean, if you're not going to let me play as the characters, you got to let me play shoulder to shoulder with them.
Yeah, or they're the villains or whatever. I mean, they need to be a part of the plot at the very least.
And if you're leaning on the supernatural side of the Marvel universe, I like the supernatural stuff. I was a fan of the Midnight Suns crap back in the 90s, where you had Johnny Blaze and Ghost Rider and Hellstrom and the Dark Hold and all that stuff. That's cool. That's just cool to me, but most people don't know anything about that stuff, although we might know more about it after Doctor Strange 2, because it seems like they're going to deal with some of that.
Yeah.
Certainly the Darkhold showing up in WandaVision indicates that we're going that direction.
Yep.
Moon Knight's going to get his own series. So that stuff is happening. He'll probably be in the thick of sort of introducing that to the mainstream audience as this game finally comes out. But at the same time, you're like, well, are we at least going to see some weird villain, Deacon Frost, or some of these odd villains that maybe nobody's heard of, but at least be recognizable, or are we just going to be fighting generic vampires all day?
Right. I mean,
Marvel does have a version of Dracula. I guess he could be the main bad guy.
I mean, the other side of the coin for this, Matt, is that, having those characters didn't save Marvel's Avengers.
True.
I mean,
the game's got to be good.
Right. Ultimately, it came down to people just didn't like playing the game. And the characters that were included, and they were all there, weren't enough to convince people to play the game anyway. So
XCOM is definitely a better base to build from.
Right, exactly. To me, XCOM has everything it needs already. It's a great game. Everyone likes the structure and the design of it.
And it's very strange to, just, not that I'm going to say no to almost any Marvel thing, but it's it's just weird that, I would never match this formula up with Marvel. The XCOM thing. I would never, if all the popular games, you'd say, what can you see getting, hosed down in Marvel juice? XCOM would be very near the bottom of the list.
Because the other thing about it is XCOM typically isn't very story or plot driven.
No.
There's a premise.
Right.
But it's not, you were seeing in some of the B-roll for Chimera Squad, which is the most recent XCOM to be released. It's a lot of the story is told with text bubbles and
there's more story in Chimera Squad than any other XCOM game.
Yeah.
So and it is kind of comic booky in a way. So I guess it kind of is a proof of concept in some ways for this maybe. But the other thing is I wouldn't do widespread Marvel. I would focus on I don't know everything I can come up with for the XCOM formula for that would be kind of boring. I mean, I guess I could use X-Force. I'd go back to X-Force and have a cable-led team of those guys and have that sort of be adapted to because they had a paramilitary thing going on. I guess you could do a Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. thing.
Yeah.
But who gives a shit
right,
about
who
that?
Cares? Nobody cares. Yeah. It's I understand that the XCOM formula is create your own characters, permadeath. You have this bond with the character. If it dies, it drives you bonkers. It makes you really upset. I would argue I would be just as upset if my Spider-Man died.
Yeah, and you don't have to kill Spider. Just have him be out of action for a few battles or something.
Even if he died, though, I would be really angry over that. If you're looking for that reaction from the player, I think you get that maybe even more so.
I just don't think they want to do that. I think that's probably you're not allowed to kill these characters if you have the license. I think that's probably the part of the problem here.
Do you know that for a fact?
I don't know that for a fact, but my guess is that you are not allowed to just murder Spider-Man in any form if you're making a video game out of a Marvel property.
Okay. Which would mean they'd have to let you create your own character.
Pretty much. But again, like I said, you could just have them be out of action for a few battles. You don't have to kill them. You can do. I mean, there's a non-permadeath option in XCOM.
That's true. Yeah. Matt, based upon what you know about how Marvel licenses stuff, would they be able to allow you to use costume pieces from Marvel characters while creating your character? Like, could you get Spider-Man's mask?
Theoretically, you could do that, yeah.
Yeah. Which may be a good way to kind of skirt around it. Like, what if you were able to...
There's going to be mods where you can just turn them into the characters anyway. So.
Yeah, but that's for people who play on PC. And that's a small percentage of the people who are going to ultimately play it. Although with XCOM, maybe not quite as much, because it is kind of a PC-first franchise. It was birthed on the PC mostly. But do you think there may be a case where you have, like, the Spider-Man mask and the Spider-Man shirt and the Spider-Man pants, and you could actually end up creating Spider-Man if you really wanted to?
No.
They won't let you do that.
I don't think so.
Interesting.
Not like an exact replica, no.
Okay.
Also depends like what you're going for. Like if they're going full supernatural, Spider-Man might not even be a factor.
Yeah.
It's hard to say.
Would be
like
a huge mistake.
Everything we know right now is too vague to really make any call on that.
Yeah. Do you think it's a smart decision?
I don't know. Like, I don't know.
I mean, you could count on the core of the game being pretty good. They've made, 4 XCOMs or 3 at this point? 4.
I think, was it 4?
3 or 4.
3,
so people know what they're getting, but we also know that it's really good and that they have this foundation that they build upon every time, and they make it better every time. I think the XCOM fans are going to love it no matter what. But
if you find an angle that works, that could be interesting, but it's like... It wasn't the create your own character thing that made me go, It was the thing where he basically said, like, you're not going to see any Marvel characters in this. Which is
I hope they're not
bizarre.
paying much for that license. Because I'm guessing they're doing this to try to get XCOM over the hump. It's kind of plateaued. It's a known quantity now. It's not... They don't
Chimera Squad was not the breakthrough maybe they hoped it would be.
They don't innovate enough with it, I think, or change it enough from one entry to another to kind of have this breakthrough release of the franchise. I'm guessing they thought Marvel might get them over the hump with that, but if you're not actually utilizing the license the way people expect, I'm not sure that that's actually going to work the way that they had planned. Are you more excited or less excited for it now? Because now there's this mystery, right?
Honestly, I forgot it existed, so it was like, oh yeah, that. I don't know. I'll wait and see more. I don't have an opinion on it yet.
I felt like I knew what it was. Now I don't feel like I know what it's going to be at all. And I don't know if that's making me more excited or more disappointed, to be honest.
I don't know. I think I need to see what it is. Like I don't have an opinion right now. I especially because it's like the reaction to what he said could change the game.
Yeah.
People did not react to that well.
They didn't, yeah. And
so that could definitely make them change course.
I mean, my knee-jerk reaction was, like, that's insane.
Yeah. I have a couple friends who were happy they could create their own character because they prefer to create your own character instead of choosing pre-existing ones. But, like, the majority of response I saw online was, what the hell are you doing?
Yeah, this doesn't make any sense.
At the very least, I think at this point, Marvel I'd like to think Marvel knows that their license is not bulletproof in the video game arena, and they should probably listen to the people.
Yeah.
If they don't want another Marvel Avengers or Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite or any of that on their hands.
Yep.
Like, I'd say the most successful Marvel game in recent years is probably Ultimate Alliance 3. And that was pretty much a slavish remake of the previous
That's
two.
That's not something to be proud of. Yeah.
Because that's what people wanted.
Yeah.
Like give them
Playing
what they
as
want.
The characters, giving them their abilities, easy, accessible.
You really want to give me what I want? Give me Marvel Heroes back, you jerks. I'm
still
mad about that. I really like that game.
See what chat's saying about this stuff. You could kill Marvel characters in Fortnite. Not that I paid cash to do that. That's actually a good point.
But there's an in-universe thing that says it's like Groundhog Day. They resurrect every time.
Yeah, Schneeky says, I would love to play Avengers, but it's so boring and grindy. It is. Like, once you get past the campaign...
Yeah. Apparently the Black Panther thing's good, but like... And the Hawkeye little quest was good, but it's over pretty fast. Like, I've uninstalled it. I probably should try the Black Panther thing, but...
Andy T. Monahan brings up a good point. Mario plus Rabbids managed to bring a license into that formula and make it very interesting. So there's no reason why they couldn't do it with this Marvel game as well.
But this sounds like the equivalent of like a Mario Rabbids game where you have to play as like random toads the whole time.
Justin Horman says, so they paid Marvel, but they didn't pay the Marvel's Players Association. That's a sports joke. Because sports games, you can get the league license, but you need the NFLPA license to actually have the real players in the game. So pretty clever there. A Suicide Squad for Marvel games. I had Imperfects on the PSP and was actually excited for that while playing Metal Gear Acid. There's a blast from the past, Metal Gear Acid. Okay, Mega Drive guy, thank you for Twitch Prime. Appreciate it, bruh. So anyway, that's all we know right now about Marvel XCOM. It is coming from Firaxis, the same studio that's been developing XCOM all along. So I think we can feel pretty confident that it's going to be pretty good. Whether they utilize the license or not, that's kind of the big X factor. And right now, it's not looking good on that front. All right, let's move on. We're going to talk next about PlayStation VR 2. We just got some new specs for it. PlayStation or Sony did a little conference with developers to explain the functionality of PlayStation VR 2, or whatever it ends up being called. That's what we're calling it here on the show, just so people can relate to the product. It's impressive, Matt. Did you see this stuff?
No.
So do you think it's fair to say at this point that when we learn about something new VR related, that we should compare it to Oculus Quest 2?
I guess. I don't know.
I mean, it's the gold standard now. I think it's what most people have tried.
It's the brass standard. There's no gold standard in VR.
That's a good way to put it.
Let's not aggrandize it that much.
Well, the other thing too is that
it's the closest thing to someone taking steps in the right direction right now.
Yep. And I mean, the other thing that we should say is that Oculus Quest 2 is standalone, and so it's not wired or anything. It still does room scale VR, but because it is all self-contained and has to run off of a battery, it's not like the Vive or Oculus Rift.
You pay for it. You pay a quality price.
Yeah, it's like $300.
Yeah, for convenience.
But it's become like the thing that's finally taken off in VR versus like these wired PC-centric HMDs that are technically impressive, but not quite as practical to use. It appears that Sony is going for that other model, not the Quest model. It's going for the wired. Let's see what we can squeeze into this thing to get as good a performance as possible. But I'll say this, like, it appears that the price is going to be pretty high. But it does also appear that you're getting pretty great quality from the money that you're potentially going to spend on it.
You can get this, or you can get a new SSD.
Somebody had
choose wisely.
Some people had some concerns with your $800 figure for an SSD from last week's episode.
I didn't say $800. It was $550.
Oh, I think you said people were quoting $800. I don't quite remember.
That was my like
pie in the sky
facetious
number.
Guess on what like a 10 terabyte thing for that would. But
Okay.
the 2 terabyte Western Digital with a heat sink was $550.
Okay,
Which is the minimum I would want would be 2 terabytes to expand that, and so you're looking
apparently
at that
you can get the 1 terabyte for like $150. Like one that'll work, and I guess the one that Cerny recommended was $150.
Yeah, the one he was excited about was $550.
Right. Just trying to smooth it over as best he can, I believe. So anyway, we have the first tech specs of PlayStation VR 2, and we're going to try to compare these to what you're getting on Oculus Quest, because again, I feel like most people, if they go to buy this, they're going to be like, should I get this or should I get an Oculus Quest 2? I just think that's going to be the most common question people ask. Let's see. It's going to display at 4,000 times 2040 pixels, and that's 2,000 by 2040 per eye. To put that in perspective, the Quest 2 is 1832 times 1920 per eye. So not that big of a leap, really, when you compare it to Quest 2.
It's going to depend on the quality of the lens and the quality of the screen.
Yep.
And what the screen door effect looks like, because obviously the PSVR 1 has a big problem with that.
Yep.
It's a huge upgrade from the PSVR.
Oh, yeah.
That's for sure.
Oh, it's gigantic. First of all, just before we discuss anything else, PlayStation VR 2 destroys PlayStation VR. Like, just mops the floor with it. So don't...
it's almost like insulting.
Right. Like, if you have any question about, is this going to be an it is night and day improvement over the first PlayStation VR, which, again, the thing I regret buying the most from last generation, I still regret it. I can't believe I spent so much money on something I used so little. Let's see. Let's look at some other stuff. let's see. It has eye tracking support for foveated rendering, which means it tracks your eyes so that it's only rendering stuff in full resolution that you're actually looking at. So if you look left, the stuff on the right is going to be rendered a little more murky because you're not looking at it and you're just basically seeing it with your peripheral vision. It makes perfect sense. It frees up resources.
Which also makes it so you don't have that thing where if you look around with your eyes, things look out of focus.
Right.
On the edges.
Depending on where, because before it's rendering based upon what direction the headset's facing. And it can't track your eyes to see where you're actually looking.
Eye tracking is a big deal. It's a huge... It solves about 3 different problems.
Yep. It has an HDR OLED display with a field of view of 110 degrees. That's 10 more degrees than the original PlayStation VR. Again, a huge deal, really. Mm-hmm. Let's see if I can find that information for Quest 2. I probably should have done a better job of organizing my notes. I know the display panel in Quest 2 is a fast switch LCD, which compared to an OLED, obviously a huge upgrade. The display on Quest 2 runs at 72 hertz at launch, or it did, and then eventually 90 hertz support showed up. PlayStation VR 2, let's see if I can find that information. I don't think I actually have that information of what frame rate it's going to run at, unfortunately. It includes, here's the thing. It includes flexible scaling resolution, capacitive touch sensors for the thumb, index, and middle finger. The trick, though, is that the sensors will be able to tell not just if a player is touching the controller, which is what we know from the DualSense controller, but if not, how far away from the controller their fingers are, which basically is their way to figure out full hand tracking, although it seems like it's just 3 digits, which probably is enough.
About what you need in the end,
yeah. You probably don't need much more than that, I would guess.
You can use these last 3 fingers as a unit and kind of get through.
Yeah. What else? Sony wants upcoming traditional PlayStation 5 titles that are played on a flat screen to feature hybrid VR support, much like they did with Hitman 3, Resident Evil 7, and No Man's Sky. Sony did not mention backwards compatibility with the original PlayStation VR, and the launch details are coming early next year. So we already knew it wasn't coming out this year. I'd say 50-50 it comes out next year. If they announce it early enough, then maybe it comes out for Christmas. I do believe that if it doesn't make Christmas of next year, they'll delay it for another year so it comes out Christmas of the next year. So you might want to keep your fingers crossed that they do get all that stuff done in time for holiday 2022.
Holiday 2023, I think you're bumping up against the PS5 Pro at that point.
You think?
Maybe.
You think we'll get it that early?
We'll see.
That seems
fast, but...
It does.
I don't know.
I think a lot will depend on manufacturing.
Yeah.
You know, can they get the components to build that stuff?
Maybe what if the PS5 Pro has a way easier way to expand storage?
That would be smart.
You might get my money on that one just automatically.
Yeah, that would be really smart. Or it's more flexible in what drives you can use in it. That would be great too. I do think that might be a little bit early. Matt, is this smart? Is this smart for Sony to, instead of building a competitor to Quest 2, is this smart for Sony to kind of go back to the old way of doing VR and just creating this thing that's as powerful?
I don't know about they don't have a choice. This is what they're making. Their system is the PlayStation. They cannot make a standalone Quest competitor. They have to make something that works with the PlayStation 5.
They'd have to find some kind of video streaming tech to stream the video from the console. Which
be a thing. Yeah, they're stuck with this. This is what they do. It's a PlayStation product that plugs into the PlayStation 5, and that's that. I mean, they were never going to make a Quest competitor.
They did find a way to do it with the Wii U gamepad, though, to stream the video to the pad.
A much lower resolution, in a much less satisfying way. It's
probably at 29.97 hertz.
Yeah, it's not
ideal for VR.
No.
Especially not for me, someone who gets sick from VR.
The biggest problem they have right now is that we don't know what we're going to play on this thing. Like, that's the thing. You need to give me something that I can only play on this.
Well, that's what they were trying to do, because they were speaking to developers at this thing, trying to get them on board.
But I'm not going to buy this so I can play Horizon 2 in VR or whatever, that God of War in VR. That's not going to work. Like, I don't care about that. You got to give me games built for this thing.
Yeah, I agree.
And so, sure, like cockpit stuff works pretty well. I got an X-Wing game or No Man's Sky or whatever, until you get out of the ship and then you're just like, oh, this sucks. Like, yeah, you got to show me something I want to play that I can only play on PlayStation. And so, that's not going to be until they unveil the thing, I guess,
Sony's never going to sacrifice one of its big IP to make it a PlayStation VR exclusive. It's just not.
No.
So what's the answer then? What they're doing, having these conferences,
they need a Half-Life Alyx is what they need.
Yeah.
But will they be willing to do it? I mean, hell, they should go to Valve and buy Half-Life Alyx.
Yeah.
A PS5 VR version.
Exclusive. Yeah. That would be smart.
That's probably what they're going to call it, by the way, PS5 VR.
PS5 VR?
Yeah.
Why do you think that?
Because I think PSVR 2
is stupid.
Reminds you of the last one too much.
That's a good point. And it's stupid.
It is.
VR 2, that's just dumb.
Yeah, sequel to VR.
Yeah, keep in mind when we're saying this, and we have been saying it for a while, this is just placeholder. We don't think it's going to be called that ultimately.
But what else can you call it right now?
They might call it PSVR 2.
Yeah, but I don't think they will.
Instead of spelling it out, literally just calling it PSVR 2. Mm-hmm. That might...
Maybe. I think calling it 2 is a mistake just because it calls attention to the last one, which I don't know. I don't know a lot of people who bought the last one who don't regret it.
I regret it. Absolutely.
So I don't know if reminding you that this is the second go around on this thing is really the best idea. I think PS5 VR is a better move because it just ties it to the PS5 and makes it clear.
Which is a smashing success and blah blah blah. Yeah. Now, keep in mind they didn't tie the PS4 into it.
Can't wait to see the giant fins that go up over your head on this one.
Matt, do you think this is a smart idea in general?
I mean, I wouldn't do it, but clearly Sony has decided to commit to this thing.
Why do you think that is?
I think they just have they got a lot of sunk costs in the R&D on this thing. They got to follow it through until the top brass says hey, let's just stop doing this.
But which
will probably be after this one doesn't sell, right?
But the old saying, it's don't throw good money after bad. And that's essentially what PlayStation's doing with this new VR helmet for PS5.
Yeah, I think you gotta try twice with this stuff. Oculus certainly did, and they actually came up with something the second time.
Well, it tried more than twice.
What? But you want to talk about the big. You had the Oculus and you had the Oculus Quest, is what most people think of, and the Quest is the thing that finally got traction. Even Valve did this. Went from the Vive to the Index.
Yeah, and
the Index is probably the top tier VR thing right now if you can afford it and want to actually go all in on something that over the top. And then beyond that you have stuff like Google Cardboard or whatever, but
at the very bottom of the rung. Yeah.
But at the same time it's Google Cardboard stuck on a phone doesn't work that much worse in the end when it comes to just sort of a quick VR thing.
It doesn't.
So it's hard to say.
I think this is a huge mistake.
I don't think it matters. I think they can take the hit.
I think it does matter for PlayStation. I don't think it would have mattered for Microsoft, and maybe not even Nintendo.
I don't think it does. I think the R&D and the cost of this thing is very much siloed off into its own thing, and whatever happens to PSVR is not going to reflect on PlayStation. I think they are ready for this to crash and burn.
I mean, maybe they don't admit it to themselves. The reputation of PS5 or anything. It won't hurt the PS5 sales. I just think that they're just flushing money down the toilet.
They probably are, but
and I don't think that Sony. I think of the three, Sony can least afford to be flushing money down the toilet.
Maybe, but I think they can afford this. I don't think it matters very much, and I don't think anyone will really notice too much.
Yeah,
it's just going to be another thing they try to do. It's going to be another Vita. It's going to be another PSP. It's going to be another PSVR. They've always got some weird side project that doesn't pan out. It's going to be another PlayStation Move.
That's another one.
It's going to be another iToy. It's going to be
You do bring up a good point, though. Sony, and I hate this phrase, should probably stay in its lane.
Pretty much.
Because every time it swerves outside of it, it's pretty much a disaster.
It becomes Ridge Racer. And it's you stop it.
Yeah, it becomes a disaster.
I mean, you remember sitting there at the 2006 E3 where we're sitting there watching that Eye of Judgment demo for 50 minutes, and finally I think Morgan turns to me and goes, "What the hell am I watching?" And I'm like, "I don't know. What? It's still going."
Yeah, they tried to dip their toes into augmented reality with that and with the Vita.
I had that. I had the cards and the whole thing.
I still have it.
I think I threw them out when I moved.
Well, it was insane.
I was like, why would I ever want this?
Stands and this mat that you had to lay down.
You couldn't play, and nobody wanted to play.
Yeah, because it was awkward and weird.
And you couldn't play with the cards outside of it. They were only useful in the game. It's a problem playing board games with just a normal app on a phone.
I know.
But having to set up a giant crane rig to actually, it's just ridiculous. But Sony always has some kind of weird pipe dream project on the side with.
It should have waited to announce this, I think. and give itself an out. Now everybody knows about it. They've put out like their first official
I was
statements on
honestly
it.
surprised this was not a leak.
Right.
Like when I first heard that, I didn't look.
it kind of
I didn't
is.
see. It's sort of, but like they owned up to it. So
Yeah.
it's like, I guess you don't really have a choice at that point. But
Yeah.
it just felt like, oh, that seems weird. Like I figured it was like just leaked specs, and then it turned out to be them confirming things. But
Yeah.
I didn't actually look at it too closely. I was just like, oh boy, like
Well,
we're doing this
I
again.
looked at the specs and I was like, oh, they're going after the Vive market. And they're not going after the Quest market.
Yeah.
And that's...
I did get my PSVR adapter.
I did too.
But
finally it showed up, and I just was like,
I threw it in the drawer, and I'm saying, well, I got that now. I'll put you right next to that Rock Band adapter for Xbox One.
Yeah, I have not booted up my PlayStation VR with PS5. Have you?
No. The last thing I played it with it was Iron Man,
That might have been mine.
which
I didn't play it very long.
I don't even remember when that was. Was that
a long
like
time ago.
2019?
I'll put it to you this way.
We're 4 months from 2022. Do you know that?
I know, it's insane. I'll put it to you this way. A couple weeks ago, I took the Iron Man VR B-roll off of the TriCaster because I realized, okay,
Yeah, we're not going to
go back to that one. This is taking up a lot of space, and I need like every gig I can on the TriCaster because we've been building our B-roll library for 5 years on it now. It's pretty insane. We could talk about almost anything on this show, and I could dig it up on our TriCaster and have footage for it. Like, it would almost be fun to have people just start throwing stuff out in the chat and me like trying to find it on there, because our B-roll collection is pretty impressive. It's taken a lot of work, but now it's to the point where I don't want to cut anything off of there, and I have like a hard drive that I dump stuff onto so I can get the new B-roll onto the TriCaster for each episode. But anyway, that's the latest on PlayStation VR 2. I think it's headed towards a total shit show, for lack of a better phrase. I don't think interest in this is going to be very high. I think once people find out the price of it, they're going to reject it. And if the people that don't reject it have already probably had the first PlayStation VR and felt burned by it, like I did, I don't see a good end for this at all. Even though Sony's already officially announced it on their PlayStation blog or whatever, if I were them, I would just bail. There's no data that suggests it's going to be successful. There just isn't. So, I don't know. Maybe they think like they're in too deep now. I would argue that they're not, and there's plenty of time to reverse course, but I would be surprised if Sony does. I wonder if anyone in chat is even excited for it. I mean, people still can't get a PS5. Why would they care about PlayStation VR for the PS5? Bunko says, I played Squadrons on my PlayStation VR. That actually, I think, may have been the last thing that I played.
I never actually got around to doing that.
Yeah.
I should try that.
That was the last thing that I played on.
That is definitely the best thing I ever played on PlayStation VR was the X-Wing VR thing that they put out for Rogue One on Battlefront.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of people in the chat are just basically saying, like, it needs to be wireless for me to care. And that's kind of the argument I made when they first announced it. I was like, this is stupid. Nobody wants a wired VR helmet anymore.
The other problem is, like, the angle at which you have to play it because of where the camera ends up being and where the PlayStation 5 ends up being. Like, one of the things that always bugged me about that was, like, and this is an advantage that, like, the Vive had with the room scale sensors being part of the, like, up on near the ceiling, was, like, when I played the Vive, it was wired to my PC, but I could face away from the PC.
Right.
I would generally play facing the other direction into the rest of the room, and the sensor just picked me up. Like, I can't do that with the PlayStation VR. Like, I have to face the entertainment center because that's where the PlayStation camera is, and I can't move the PlayStation to the other side of the room. So I'm just sort of stuck with the cord coming out of the PlayStation and then having to route it around the back of me to get into the thing.
Yeah, it's awkward.
And, like, you get wrapped in it more than you normally would. So, like, just the fact that it's coming from a console that needs to be able to see the PlayStation VR versus the Vive or a more room scale oriented thing that doesn't need to necessarily be facing a certain direction, that's even a problem for it. Like, it's got all these extra things against it that even the other wired headsets don't have to deal with.
Yep.
It's an ongoing thing.
I just think it's really foolish, and I'm surprised that Sony decided to stick to it. I almost wonder if they feel guilty because so many people were unhappy with their first PlayStation
I don't
VR.
think they feel guilty at all. They're trying to sell them the same thing again for more money. That's not guilt. That's greed.
I don't see how they could think that they're going to make a lot of money on it.
It doesn't matter. It's a corporate thing. It doesn't matter. Like, they've sunk the cost. It's already too late. They're going to go through with it, and they're going to eat the cost. That's what's going to happen. Like, I very strongly doubt we will see a PlayStation VR 3.
Yeah. I think you're right. Yeah, because I don't see this one doing well, and they would be fools to try it a third time, no matter how much you
Unless
think
something really unexpected happens.
some kind of emerging technology happens or something that makes it more
And hell,
valuable.
maybe Half-Life Alyx gets on that thing, and that's all it needs.
That could be
It seems like a long shot.
a long shot, for sure. So anyway, that's the latest on PlayStation VR 2 or PS5 VR, whatever it ends up being called. I mean, technically it looks good, but every time I see that,
Yeah, the specs are nice.
I just hear cha-ching,
sure.
cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. I mean, it's going to be at least as expensive as the last one. And,
I would expect it to be between $400 and $500.
And you can get Quest for $300.
Mm-hmm.
And
I mean, the specs on that thing are no joke.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's not going to be cheap. I'd be surprised even if it does come in at like $500, to be honest with you, because
it could be this price of the system.
Yeah, I mean, they can't sell the PC HMDs for that cheap that have the same tech or a little less.
Yeah, like between that and the SSD upgrades, like the PlayStation 5 is a pricey meatball.
It's an expensive proposition if you want to get fully.
You want the full experience.
Absolutely. Yep. All right, let's move on. We're going to talk next about South Park. It was announced this week that my old company.
How is this still going?
How is what still going?
South Park.
What do you mean?
It's
The
just
show?
Yeah, everything. The whole thing, just amazing to me. Because I remember when that thing started back in '97.
It's not funny anymore.
No, it hasn't been for a while.
It's not. I've tried to watch it every once in a while. For the longest time, I kept DVRing it. Like the last theme, which is kind of how I look at South Park. They always go, after every like 3 or 4 years, they kind of shift themes. The latest theme of him like having a weed dispensary and growing weed, it just wasn't funny. I don't know what's happened. I don't know if they've lost a bunch of writers or what. But
I think it's mostly still them. Trey and Matt.
I mean, maybe they've just lost the creative spark. I don't know.
Somewhat. They were also, they also, for a long time, a lot of the humor of that series came from sort of this whole, like, everyone's an idiot and both sides are morons thing, and I don't think that is really working anymore.
Yeah, because I don't think people agree with that anymore.
No.
To be honest.
They kind of took that sort of we're libertarian and above everything sort of attitude, and that attitude doesn't really play in the 2010s and the 2020s anymore.
Yeah. So you're right. I think the show has really fallen. I really don't care about it anymore, but it must still rate pretty well because my old company, Viacom, just gave those two guys $900 million.
Yeah. Well, he's like Parker's talked about how like they're tired of it, and sometimes they make shows that they hope it gets them canceled and fired, so they don't have to do it anymore. And they're just like, we're just going to keep asking for more and more ridiculous stuff until they say no. And apparently, that's never going to happen.
Well, Matt,
they are going to make Trey Parker and Matt Stone are going to make that show till they die at this rate. Like they are never going to be allowed to rest.
Matt, they just got $900 million, and it encapsulates.
I mean, I know it encapsulates everything. It's amazing to me that anyone thinks South Park brand. I mean, it's also stuff with all the other stuff they might do, but it's not like they've ever done anything bigger than South Park. It's just amazing that anyone thinks that's worth that much money.
Mitch says that he likes the current South Park stuff. So happy it has more seasons to come. I literally haven't laughed at that show in 3 years.
I haven't seen it in probably 15.
Yeah, I don't find it funny at all anymore. But they gave those two guys $900 million. That is for, I think it was like 6 feature-length films,
something like that. Yeah,
the seasons of the show, and then there's some other like thing that they're doing with the TV show, and then money to make a video game. And
I mean, to be fair, video games are the only way I've interacted with South Park in a very long time. Like those Ubisoft games are pretty much it.
Yeah. The Fractured But Whole, which we're seeing right now. Ubisoft had this license. This game released in 2017. Is that right? I believe so.
That was a long time ago.
I believe it released
Stick of Truth was even longer ago.
Yeah. I believe it was 2017. So Ubisoft, it appears, has either lost a license or let the license lapse, didn't want to do it anymore. And so now the two dudes have decided to make their own video game. And not only that, Matt, they've come out and said that it's not going to be some budget like indie 2D game. It's going to be a full 3D game. They haven't announced any kind of the details on it yet as far as what kind of game it's going to be. The two Ubisoft games were turn-based strategy RPGs, which for some crazy reason kind of worked with the IP. Matt, what would you be looking for in a new South Park game, if anything? Or
Nothing.
Really?
I don't care. Like, I didn't even finish the Fractured But Whole.
You didn't?
No, I got back halfway through it, and it was enough.
Yeah.
It was. I mean, it was very similar to the first. It was
Yeah.
a Stick of Truth, which I did finish. I just kind of felt like I'd seen everything it had to show me. I don't care.
So would it be safe to say that at the very least you would prefer that the new South Park game goes for a different genre?
Maybe. I don't know what they could do that would make me want to play it. Like, I don't know what. I'm not interested like in any more than, like, I don't know, if you made like a. I'm trying to think of another franchise I don't care about. Like, if I don't care about the license, I don't care about the license. I haven't watched South Park regularly since 2002. Like, it's
but I play plenty of games where either they're brand new and they're based on a brand new IP, or they're a license that I don't really care about, and I can still enjoy them.
But like the South Park games are very rooted in the license more than the gameplay.
Typically, yes.
Like,
that's true.
it's like, it's sort of like how, like, am I going to play the new Dragon Ball game? No, like, I don't. I'm sure it's fine, but the appeal is mostly the license, the fact that you reenact these stories and these characters and see what they do, and I don't care what they do. So that's sort of the problem with South Park too.
Yeah.
I appreciate how well they replicate the show in these games. Like that looks really incredible to me. Like that. I mean, not that it's hard to replicate, really, but it's just like the fact that they did it so true. You could think that you're watching the show when you're playing those games. It's really impressive.
I do wonder if Trey and Matt have taken for granted what Ubisoft has done with this license.
That's a good question. I mean, this Fractured But Whole did have some development problems.
Yeah.
At the time, I mean,
but it ended up
turned
becoming
out well.
a great product. Yeah, that did the IP justice. And I don't know if those guys are ready for rolling their sleeves up and really getting down to the nuts and bolts of making a great video game. Obviously, they're going to write the scenario.
Yeah. I mean, they were involved in these for sure.
Yeah,
and,
but they don't program or anything like that.
No, but
they
I mean, all they got to do is find someone to do that for them.
Yeah,
they can hire. They got $900 million. They're going to hire whoever the hell they want at this point, right?
I think they will find though that $900 million goes real fast because if you're working on 5 films, and I think it signed them for 6 more seasons of the show, if I remember correctly. And then some other project they're doing, and then the game. I mean, shockingly, that money will be spent pretty quickly. I mean, just if you really try to build a quote-unquote AAA game, that's going to set you back a couple $100 million right there. I mean, that's essentially a fifth of the money that Viacom gave you. Now, you're hoping that it's a success and you turn a profit on the game and all that money comes back to you. But that's a big X factor. And a lot of it, I think, will just depend on what's the plot of the game. Is it tied into what the TV show is doing right now? Or is it tied into the films that they're going to be working on? Or is it tied into the other multimedia project that they're going to be working on? I think a lot of that will determine it.
I don't think it's that weighing that hard on their mind. So.
Yeah. After you just got paid $1 billion.
Hey, but Trey Parker is worth $600 million.
He's already worth $600 million.
Those guys are worth those guys. This is all bonus to them. It's not they get to make 6 movies. Like, that's probably what they're most excited about.
Probably, yeah. Anything that is out of the mold of doing the show grind of week. Cause I don't know if you guys have ever watched.
Because they also have the disadvantage that they're like half the voices, so it's like they gotta be there every time.
I don't know if everyone's watched it or not, but what is that documentary called that shows the week?
Yeah,
what's it called?
I can't remember what it's called, but it's like it's a week in the life of
them making the show, and they have earned their money. Yeah. I'll just say it that way. Like, it is a rush to get that show done every week and get it in the can and sent to Viacom and programmed into
and that's how they've chosen to do it. Like, that's so there you go. 14 movies.
14 movies?
I don't know if they're 14 South Park movies. I think it was just for 14 movies. Like, they've made other movies before. Like Basketball and Orgasmo and stuff. I don't know if they're all South Park.
Yeah. And Johnny Hurricane does bring up a good point, which was that THQ had the license first, and then THQ went bankrupt, and Ubisoft purchased the license out of the bankruptcy court, I believe.
Yeah.
And that's how Ubisoft had it for really a game and a half. Because THQ did most of the heavy lifting on the first one, on Stick of Truth, and then Ubisoft took over to get that game out. Yeah.
Didn't Obsidian do the first one or something?
I don't remember.
Obsidian was on one of them. I can't remember what. I think
it had to be the first, I believe.
I think the first one, because THQ was doing it.
Yeah. So it's just, I just feel like the show has kind of run its course. It's amazing that it's lasted this long. It's that and The Simpsons, which are just anomalies and things that
you're also suffering from a similar similar phenomenon where it's just like, what is this still doing on?
I know. Yeah, I haven't even tried to watch The Simpsons in a long time.
Yeah.
I was never like Mr. Simpson dude who could sit and quote like every funny line from The Simpsons, but I would watch it like through college. I watched it every night with my buddies. We drinking 40s or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I know the first like 6 or 7 seasons pretty well.
Yeah,
just because of the time they were. I mean, I do remember the day after that. That used to air on Sundays. I don't know if it still does.
Yeah,
so I don't know when anything airs anymore.
I don't either.
They used to when it started, it premiered on Sundays, and I remember talking about it the following day on Monday at middle school.
Well, it would come on
that show has been on for most of my existence.
Yeah, I mean, it would come on right after football.
Yeah,
and so was it Fox? Yeah, Fox would show their Sunday lineup of NFL games, and then they'd throw from the last football game into The Simpsons. And so a lot of people I knew just organically just watched every episode. But yeah, I've fallen off with that franchise as well. It is amazing that both of them have lasted as long as they have. That's a testament to the people who are working on them. But inevitably, you're eventually going to run out of steam. That's just the way it is. And I feel like South Park did that a while ago, and I think The Simpsons did that for me like a decade ago.
Now, Simpsons, everybody argues over when The Simpsons lost it or whatever. But, I mean, for me, it was probably still the 90s.
Yeah.
Like late 90s.
As far as like caring about each episode.
And I've still, when FX put all of them on, or FXX or whatever it was, like put all of them on in rotation and would run them. I watched a lot of that. I just had it on sort of background noise. And I like a fair amount of the episodes that have happened since, even after the CG turnover.
Yeah.
But it's not, the first 6, 7 seasons of Simpsons are actual genius.
Oh, yeah.
Are actual animation and comedy genius. Because they were being written by comedy genius.
Right.
One of the greatest, maybe the greatest one, Marge versus the Monorail, was written by Conan O'Brien.
Yeah.
It was, this stuff is
some of those names that we didn't know back then.
Yeah. You look through all the
credits now.
Yeah, the writing credits, and it's just like everyone who's big in comedy
it's a who's
now.
Who. Yeah.
And one of the directors of most of the episodes, a man named Nelson Shin, also the director on most of the old Transformers and G.I. Joe shows.
No, wow.
Director of the animated Transformers movie, which turned 35 on Sunday.
To answer the question that I asked you, which is how would I like to see a South Park game change, or maybe what genre should it go into? Like, I think a South Park fighting game would work pretty well.
Maybe.
But do you include those in like the Nickelodeon thing? Probably not.
Yeah, it's probably outside. You couldn't do any of the humor you'd want to do.
Yeah, you couldn't do that. And I don't know if the license works that way. They're both
the fighting,
Viacom properties. But
one of the problems is like fighting game moves need to be sort of identifiable, and like these characters do not animate like that.
Yeah.
It would just be sort of paper cutouts whacking into each other. Like
it could be funny. That, or even just a more traditional like action adventure, action RPG style game, something that isn't like where the combat's on a grid or turn based.
The N64 one, which is a first person shooter.
Yeah, and you shot like toilet
plungers and dodgeballs and turkeys and so yeah.
It was not good. And there was a kart racing game. Was that the N64 era too?
I can't remember.
It was around there. So there's been a lot of attempts, but I've never seen a fighting game. And back when the last action game was made,
like a SimCity like town simulator.
Oh. That's actually a really good idea, Matt.
Like
building South Park.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like South Park gets like some crazy urban development deal, and you have to like build it out into a major metropolitan area, but all this weird shit keeps happening.
I don't think it would get as much traction as one of those other ones, but I think it would probably be the best game. And I think if fans started playing it and they had a lot of reverence for the source material, fans could end up loving it.
Yeah.
And it could also be a game that really had legs. You could keep adding parts of South Park onto it. There's lots of ways to expand the game from whatever it is at the beginning. Yeah, I feel like 2 strategy RPGs in this universe was plenty. You always know the storytelling is going to be at least better than the average game. I think that's one thing you can probably count on. But otherwise, I feel like the creativity well is kind of starting to run dry at South Park. It'll be interesting to see how they tackle this game, who they hire to build the game, because that's what they're going to have to do. They're not going to start a studio just to build a game. You don't think, do you?
Normally I'd say no, but you never know with Trey and Matt.
These guys,
they might.
That would be a huge mistake.
They might, Trabbit. They might.
That would be a huge mistake.
Unless that's something they want. And they do love video games.
They do, but I think it would be a disaster. trying to start a studio when you've never worked in the industry before.
They have, though. Like, they were very involved in those games. Daily.
This is a whole different beast, though. Starting a studio from scratch. I mean, look at how many...
You just hire someone that can do that. They have the money to be the studio heads, and they don't really need to do the nitty-gritty in that regard. Yeah. But because they were the creative source, like, they were exchanging emails with the development teams on these two games every day sometimes. Mm-hmm. Like, they were feedback on everything, writing the lines for everything, the descriptions for everything. Like, they were very hands-on. It's not like they can program stuff themselves necessarily, but like, can Randy Pitchford do that? No. Like, it's just like, it's different. It's like, they can run stuff, I guarantee you.
Yep.
Will they end up wanting to do it more after they get one game out the door? Maybe not. But if they love games, like, they might not mind having that as a side business.
I think they should hire a studio to build a game and just consult on it. Hand them storyboards and be like, this is the story, this is the plot, this is the genre we want it to be. Go for it. I think they'll end up with a better product.
That would be very unlike them.
It would be, because they are very hands-on, micromanagers.
And also just like they don't know what it is until they do it a lot of times.
You also got to remember that with this new deal that they signed with Viacom, they're going to have their hands in a lot of pies. Like, they're going to have to delegate the normal show production to somebody else. Because if you're making 5 movies or whatever it is, you can only do so much as a person. I have learned that lesson the hard way over the last 5 years. There's only so much one person can do.
Yeah, well, the nice thing is when you have $900 million, you can hire a couple of assistants that make sure you only see the important stuff only you need to handle.
That's true. But it's hard for me to imagine that they would get neck deep in building a game studio. I just can't see it.
That's why you hire someone to do it for you.
Yeah.
You're kind of a figurehead in that regard, but you are paying for it. Counts.
Yeah. You can still put your name on it. Yeah. And ultimately, that's what's.
And you have the further advantage of it. Look, it's not like people don't know what this is. Like, you don't really need to explain South Park to most people you would hire for that game studio, especially after these games. Like, you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Like, you're maybe it was harder to kind of get that together when you're sort of reshaping what a South Park game needed to be with Stick of Truth, but like, I feel like they have a pretty clear idea. And now that they're the ones paying the bills, there'd probably be less pushback from someone like the equivalent of Ubisoft,
which could be bad.
Yeah, you never know.
It could be brilliant. It could be Ubisoft was like, no, we know what we're doing. Like, that's not going to work.
Do you buy that? It's like, I feel like a lot of the good ideas in those games came from them.
Probably. So. Yeah. Probably. Yep. Okay, so there you go. That's the latest on South Park in video games. It's not much, but we can dream. I can dream that South Park will become good as a TV show again, too, and I will continue to do that, because I will say this.
Yeah, Vincent says Bloomberg asked them. They are doing it.
Doing what?
The studio. They're starting a studio or something.
They're going to start a studio themselves?
That seems to be what he's implying.
They start a studio to make mobile games. I don't know. I read that article, the Bloomberg article. That said they're doing it. I don't know what he means by doing it. Like, I know they're working on the game. I don't know. It'll be interesting to watch, but my guess is we don't see it for another 3 years, so maybe we shouldn't be talking about it right now anyway, because I don't see it happening for quite a while, unfortunately. Okay, let's move on. We're going to talk next about Nintendo, and we've been talking all year about how Nintendo doesn't have a lot of games for the end of the year. In fact, didn't really have a lot of Switch games at all. Well, we got a story that broke. I think the initial parts of it broke yesterday, and then Ahmad Khan, who used to write for Kotaku, I believe, was he a Kotaku guy?
Maybe, I can't remember.
He worked for some publication. He got the scoop on it, and as it turns out, Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is not only coming, it was supposed to have been finished for release this year, and then various COVID problems or whatever has resulted in it being pushed out. It hasn't even been announced officially yet, but according to Khan, it is slated for release next year. And I'm sorry, Imran Khan. I had his name incorrect. The initial story came from a voice actor who was doing an interview with fans, and she's like, oh, I think there's another one of those coming. And the fans were like, what?
Whoops.
And then she goes, oh, I don't think I was supposed to say anything. And then literally like the next day, Imran Khan comes out, and he's like, oh, yeah, it's actually happening. The only real details that he has on the game itself is that there will be more characters on screen at once. Isn't that an odd tidbit to have?
I mean, I guess larger party size would be, but like you had like 8 characters on it once, or 6 characters.
I
on
think
it once
I'm
and two.
good.
Yeah, that's not what I'm after. What I would like the new one to be is not a bunch of anime boob shots. How about that? Like, how about everybody wears clothes in this one? God, I hate Xenoblade Chronicles 2. Like, what a fall of a series from a fantastic first entry to just bottom of the barrel garbage. Like, yeah. I hated that game.
I did have to fight my way through Xenoblade Chronicles 2, and then remember last year, Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition launched for Switch, and I loved it.
Yeah,
like that
game is great.
I almost finished that game, which is crazy because I didn't have to. I just enjoyed playing it so much that I just kept going.
Mm-hmm.
And
the first one's great.
It is really good. Like, how did that series go so wrong?
You got me. Like, I don't know why it fell into the anime waifu crap. Like, yeah. I don't know what happened there. Like, I mean, Xenoblade Chronicles X does pretty much play out like an afternoon after school like anime series. Like, it even breaks itself up into sort of episodes like that. Mm-hmm. And some of the episodes are like about like what they're going to eat for dinner that day. You know, it's like it's kind of goofy and weird. The star of Xenoblade Chronicles X was really the world you explored and kind of like all that and the endless burning drive to get a mech, which I finally did, and then I was completely uninterested in playing the rest of the game after that.
I forgot about that.
In part because it turned out you had to buy fuel all the time for the. I don't want to buy fuel for my mech. I want to fly my mech.
Yeah,
fuel is expensive. What's that about? I wasn't making enough money to keep my mech rolling, and then I got 2 more mechs, and like everyone had to buy fuel, and I'm just like, this is terrible. Like I play games to escape. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
But and then the weird gotcha thing with getting the blades, and then all the blades were like half the blades were like embarrassing like softcore porn pinups, and like it was just I don't know what happened. I don't get it. Like all the character design in 2 is terrible.
It's terrible.
Like even the main guys, it's like, why is he's in a diving suit that has like open shorts in it? It's like I don't know.
It reminds me of some of the Final Fantasy art we've seen
there's a lot. It's like some of the.
So we're gonna give everybody gauchos.
Yeah, everyone's got belts everywhere for no good reason. It's like whereas like this game, the first one was like pretty straight. I mean, it had anime elements to it. Everybody's got the eyes and sort of thing, but it's like. But it's like everybody looked kind of sort of medieval fantasy-ish. It wasn't super over the top and weird, and everybody wasn't wearing like vinyl pleather and stuff. It was sort of a good balance. It felt like kind of the old Final Fantasies, I guess. And then they just sort of went away. Like, X was a different animal. It was like a sci-fi story about people coming to another planet, and you went off on a tangent there. That's fine. You can change it. But like, I don't know why Xenoblade Chronicles 2 went so far afield in comparison to the first one.
Yeah,
I hope they rein it back in for the third one, because I would really like to see them return to what that first one did.
Well, playing the first one last year was like a reminder to me, like at how good it started and how far it's fallen. I'm not even sure about how the second one sold. Do you remember?
I think it did okay. It's certainly enough to get that standalone expansion.
Yeah.
Torna, which was I haven't played that. But
or was that planned all along though?
I mean, I think it was planned, but it still came out.
Yeah, they didn't can it at least.
It's not like they were finished when they put the original game out.
Yeah. I mean, the first game back when it came out on Wii and we couldn't play it. It was only available in Europe. I mean, a lot of people was like the Game of the Year candidate.
Yeah. For me too, I imported it.
Yeah, and a lot of people say it's like their
favorite
RPG
soft modded the Wii just
ever.
to play it.
Yeah,
and it is. It's one of my. I would say it's definitely top 10. I mean, it was a reminder of like, oh yeah, JRPGs can be great.
Yeah,
like I forgot that they all gotten so bogged down in like the stupid anime crap that like even some of my favorite, some of my favorite series were just unplayable. I gave up on the Tales games at one point. Like Vesperia was good, but the rest of it was just sort of weird. Like all the Atelier stuff, all the JRPG genre sort of like degenerated into this weird sort of harem anime nonsense and didn't tell stories anymore. It didn't feel like they were, if they did, they felt like they were telling the same story over and over again. And Xenoblade Chronicles just kind of busted out and was just like, oh hey. And the other like irony of it is like I have hated every other game that team has ever made. like all Monolith stuff I have never liked. I didn't like Xenogears. I didn't like Xeno Saga. I like Xenosaga even less. And then Xenoblade Chronicles pops up, and I thought it was one of the best things I've ever played.
I'm surprised that they're letting them make another one. Because the trend is going the wrong direction. You win Game of the Year with the first game, second game.
Yeah, I mean, it was Wii U. You can't really hold Wii U installments against anybody. Like, it was sort of a lost generation for them.
Definitive Edition comes out, everyone goes gaga over it, everyone loves it, which again reinforces the fact that things are headed in the wrong direction. Maybe.
I mean, I do remember Definitive Edition sold better than 2 in the end. I think that was what happened there. It certainly had a better launch than 2 did.
Yeah.
So I would like to believe that they can course correct on this because it's pretty clear which one people liked better.
Yep.
So maybe they can pull it back a little bit. I do think the battle system in 2 was good. Like the battle system in 2 had a lot of cool ideas, and like the fights took too long for the most part. But like I liked what they were going for. I think like a more a more not conservative approach, but a more like clear-headed approach to how to kind of integrate all that and like tell the different. It's just, and it was also like one of those things where it's like Definitive Edition. I stopped playing for a while and then I picked it up again. I jumped right back into it, and like I tried to play Xenoblade Chronicles 2 again after not playing it for a long time. I could not figure out what the hell I was doing.
I agree with you. That's why I never went and finished it. I came back to it and I gave it a chance, and I was just lost.
Yeah.
I couldn't remember how to do almost anything in the game.
And then I was like, oh, maybe I should just start over. But I'm like 15 hours in or 20 hours in. I'm like, I don't want to do all that again. It's like I didn't even like it the first time. So like,
yeah, that's definitely the one that I played the least of, for sure.
Yeah. I would like to see X get saved from the Wii U.
Yeah.
I don't know how you do that because it integrated the touchscreen so much.
Yeah, it was a big part of it, for sure.
I would like to. That's one of the last games I'd like to see rescued from that platform. But who knows if it'll happen.
Do you think that they should continue on with this franchise, Matt?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I'd like to see them, if they can course correct on the third one. And
I mean, Sony would kill it.
Yeah, for sure. But
if this were a Sony property, it would be dead.
Yeah. Well, they would let Team Ico spend 11 years making another one.
One or the other.
And then
they'd either kill it or they'd let Team Ico work on it for 2 decades.
I mean, I would like to still have hope for this series because they have radically changed. All 3 entries have been radically different from each other. In various ways. I would like to see a 3 kind of pull back closer to the first one. Should 3 come out and be more of the garbage that was 2, I will absolutely say it's time to kill this thing, or if not kill it, I'm not playing them anymore. But it would be one of the greatest tragedies in the history of franchises, I think, for video games. Is like, I don't know, I can't recall a series that has fallen this far.
They come that strong fast. Out of the gate.
Yeah, you had a Game of the Year out of nowhere on that one. To the point that they brought it out as a GameStop exclusive that Reggie seems a little bitter about having to do to this day.
He still talks about it
because people demanded it so much,
and then nobody bought.
And he's like, nobody bought. Yeah, because it was an exclusive at GameStop, a store nobody wanted to go to, and they didn't advertise it.
Yeah.
I have 3 copies of that, by the way. I have a couple sealed ones. I got a European one.
Thinking someday they'd be worth money.
No, I just ended up with a bunch because I gave a bunch of them to people for Christmas gifts that year and everybody liked them. But I ended up with a couple extra, so I'm sitting around on a couple of Xenoblade. I don't think they're worth anything, especially now that the definitive edition is out. But
Matt, it's to the point now when I think of JRPGs, the first word that comes to mind is bloated, and I would argue even the first Xenoblade Chronicles. Probably guilty of something.
Oh yeah, you got to ignore the fetch quests on that if you want to make any progress. Like it never ends, basically. Because if you do everything there is to do, you're going to be playing a game 300 hours. Like you got to move. Like you got to accept that you don't need to get everybody's bare asses and vulture heads for them before you can move on to the next area. Because otherwise, you're never going to get anywhere. And there is a difficulty. You do have to do some of it to like level up and stay on the difficulty curve. But they give you way more to do than you need to do. And so if you get bored in an area of Xenoblade Chronicles, move on. Yeah. You're fine. Follow the main story and move on to something until you get interested again. Like you do not need to stick around and do all the menial subquest stuff.
Well, my first recommendation for that franchise would be to cut the bloat and streamline the experience a little more. I don't need to play JRPGs for 100 hours.
It really feels like that is like just almost expected of that genre at this point. It's like
why though?
They all have like cooking systems and fishing mini games and like
it's like that stuff.
When did JRPGs all have to have cooking things? Like when did that happen?
Man, I don't get it.
Like Tales always had that. Yeah. Like Tales always had cooking, but at a certain point, it's like
now they all have it.
They all had it. They all have it. It's like the only way to get through certain things, and some of it's like I feel like more effort was put into making Final Fantasy 15's dishes like food look good than the rest of the game. Like there's a couple of things that Ignis makes in that game that I'm just like, I'm gonna go get dinner right now after seeing that thing. That looks really good. Like that man makes some eggs that I want to eat. I can tell you that much. That's one of the only bits of pleasure I got out of that game.
I think everyone who's developing JRPGs need to learn the lesson that sometimes less is more.
Yeah, go back to Suikoden.
Shin Megami Tensei
you can
5
finish Suikoden 1 in like 15 hours.
That's fine.
Like,
I'm cool with that.
Yeah.
It's not because it's a certain genre. It has to be so long.
Right. I think a good a big epic JRPG used to be like 70 hours if you did everything.
That's fine.
And now it's like the main story is 70 hours. If you do everything, you're in there 120 hours. And like, what do you think this is, Assassin's Creed?
Some of the main story take 100 hours.
I mean, Persona, you are in for a long haul, even if you just do all the basic stuff.
Plow through, which I did, and it still took me 100 hours.
Yeah, I never finished the final dungeon of Persona 5.
It got hard. Last dungeon was tough.
I'm saved at some point in there. I just never went back to it, but I was at 100 hours.
Yeah. There were some battles in that final dungeon that I took 3 days to beat. Because you just have to, sometimes you have to get lucky. Yep. You have to have my days of playing those games and enjoying them all the way to the end are long gone. I know there's tons of 5 to 12-year-old kids who can only get one game a year who love games like that, but I'm obviously past that stage in my life. So anyway, that's the latest on Xenoblade Chronicles 3. I'm hoping for big changes, Matt. If I find out that this is the sequel to 2, I may not even play it. I struggled to play that game at all enough so that we could talk about it on GameFace. That's where I was. And and I agree with you about the whole waifu stuff. Like, it's offensive in some ways to me at my age. I'm an adult. Like, I can see where, again, 8-year-old
It's embarrassing.
boys,
it's like,
it's embarrassing. Yeah. And so,
like, I'm sure your wife was like, "What the hell?"
That was one of those games where she rolled her eyes and was like, "When or when it got to day 2, she's like, when are you going to be done with this one?" Trying to not offend me, but at the same time being like, "I've had enough, Shane.
Enough of looking at that."
Exactly. So there you go. That's Xenoblade Chronicles 3, which maybe it gets announced before the end of the year. They're saying it's coming next year.
Stay tuned for the Game Awards.
That's probably where it's going to be shown off. Absolutely. All right, it's time to move on to our last topic, which is the Intellivision Amico. I don't know if any of you guys listened to 3-Night Weekend when Tommy Tallarico was the guest on the show.
Tommy Talamico.
Yeah, Talamico, exactly. It ended up basically that episode ended up being an advertisement for the Intellivision.
Well, I mean, that is what's going on in his life right now. So.
Everybody, everyone has something to sell, right?
Yeah, that's everyone's got their plug. They got to
right. And as you host things for years and years, you start to figure out the people who really only are there to plug their thing, or the people who are like, I'm here, I might as well plug my thing, but I also am interested in talking to you. Tommy was kind of in the former category. Like, he, at the end, he was like, I just want to let you know that you're one of the real ones, and blah, blah, blah. And I feel like he did that to, diffuse the fact that he just tried to turn the show into an hour-and-a-half commercial for Amico. I even ended up cutting a lot of his more infomercial-y stuff out of it, which was one of the only episodes I ever made edits to of 3-Night Weekend, because it just got so heavy-handed after a while. So anyway, he is the head of Intellivision, and the Intellivision Amico is all his baby. And the Amico was originally supposed to launch in October of 2020. That did not happen for COVID, component shortages, blah, blah, blah. The second date was supposed to be April 2021, and that's around the time that I talked to Tommy on 3-Night Weekend. And to be fair, he was honest in that episode. He talked then. He's like, it's tough. It's like, we're competing with these big manufacturing behemoths, and we're trying to get components for our stuff, and our orders are 1/50th the size of everybody else's, and so it's hard to get components. He was foreshadowing what was to come on 3-Night Weekend, to be honest. When I got done talking to him, I was like, man, I don't know if this thing's ever coming out. It wasn't is it coming out at the end of the year? I was like, is this thing ever going to come out? Because he's always going to be on the bottom of the totem pole. He's always going to be the last guy who's going to be able to get this stuff. And so to me, it's not going to be viable until this is over. really, and the components are all back in full stock, and everyone can just
which
order
some
them.
people are saying it's going to be like 2023.
It may not happen, yeah. And so you look at this thing that he's working on, and you just wonder, how will it ever be the priority? And if it doesn't come out until 2023, does anyone care? So the news is it was delayed again. He has basically announced that the only people who will be getting it before the end of the year are people who pre-ordered it. And even then, it sounds dicey that those people are going to get it before the end of the year. I would be shocked, actually, if they do get it before the end of the year. And so he's delayed it to the end of next year. Is that right?
End of next year? Wow. I'd heard just next year, but I didn't know.
Oh, yeah, you're right. He hasn't really announced anything for the new release date. But this was the third delay. Pre-orders by the end of the year. He sent out the press release announcing this on Friday night at midnight.
Classic.
Classic.
Released the bad news on Friday when everybody's not going to report on it for the weekend.
They did, though.
Of course they did. Like, that doesn't work anymore.
Because there's a thing called the internet. It's like
politicians try to do that now too, and it's like, no, it's a 24-hour news cycle, boys. Like it doesn't stop.
Nobody's waiting in the morning for their newspaper.
No one's waiting for the Sunday talk shows, guys. Like it doesn't work that way anymore.
Just to be fair, I want to read the official statement from Intellivision, which really Tommy wrote this. We originally planned to launch Amico in the fall of 2020, but had to adapt during the midst of the global pandemic, disrupting our production. Despite our best efforts, and now facing new unprecedented international component supply and logistics challenges beyond our control, we want to apologize as we are forced to push our desired launch date yet again. In spite of these supply hurdles hampering our ability to fill all orders, we are focused and determined to deliver pre-ordered units by the end of the year. This will also allow us more time to optimize our operating system for future game development. We want to ensure that those who have anticipated the Amigo for so long get a chance to enjoy it as soon as possible. Of course, we will keep all our customers and interested parties informed and updated on our continued progress. No date. They did not announce a new date for it because they're probably like, why?
They don't know.
They don't know. And they're like, we keep doing this and we keep ending up with egg on our face. Matt, this thing costs $250. It is basically a Raspberry Pi with controllers that have like screens on them. I mean, that's really what it comes down to.
Yeah.
How can you sell that for $250?
I would argue you can't.
You cannot.
I mean, clearly people have pre-ordered it. There's a very dedicated cult following to this thing who will let you know about it if you say anything negative about it on Twitter, I can tell you. But like in terms of being, and maybe that doesn't matter because it's such a small, like you said, 1/50th the size of things. Like it's, he's not aiming to be the next PS5, but like, I mean, I grew up around the Intellivision.
I love Intellivision,
and I ain't buying this.
I have no interest in it at all.
I mean, Playdate is barely pricey enough for me to be like, maybe at that price, that's what, 150.
Yeah,
that's kind of impulse buy-y in that regard. But like
probably
this
not buying
thing,
that either.
And like, I don't know, there would have to be some really impressive stuff on it. I'm also not thrilled he's working with the Earthworm Jim guy.
Why?
The Doug Tenapel is a horrible.
Oh, really?
Has some horrible opinions about things and LGBT stuff and general social. He's a.
Sometimes it's better to not know, Matt.
Oh yeah,
ignorance can be bliss sometimes.
Yeah, but I'm not here to make you ignorant. I'm here to tell you.
Yeah. Okay. Well, his whole pitch is like, this is games for the family, for the kids. Like he says that over and over again, and I honestly just think that he's been forced to switch to that messaging because the studios making the games, this is all they can make. There are most of them are like mobile game studios who are used to making these very simple like clicker
what else would
games
you make on that hardware, really?
I mean, you could make, it's not that let's be honest, Matt, it's not all that much weaker than the Switch.
Yeah.
I mean,
but it's also like really leaning into kind of the classic retro stuff, and like this is about all I don't know, there's combat right there.
But it's like, why?
There's Bomberman.
Anybody can make these games for any platform.
Yeah.
Like there's nothing about the Amico that makes it uniquely qualified to host these types of games. Nothing. Like you could just as easily port these games to Switch.
Right. Well, there's sort of the thing of like, oh, well, like nobody's making these for anything. Like, yeah, well, maybe there's a reason.
There's a reason for that. Like, look at these games, Matt. Like they literally are. The concepts go back to like the Intellivision days.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's Missile Command. But do I need a new version of this? And how much does that cost? That's like $30 games or something. What do the game cost?
There's one thing is that like there's a lot of pack-ins that come with the system when you buy it. I think you get like almost 20 different games that are all packed into it when you get it. But if you don't want to play even one of them, why do you want to play 30 of them? Like this thing is doomed, Matt. I really think I don't even know if it's ever coming out.
I mean, I think it will come out.
I think the pre-ordered people will get their first 10,000 units.
But I mean, it strikes me as another Ouya.
Yeah.
Basically.
Why do you make this and create a controller with a screen on it?
Because I think he believes that is the natural evolution of the Intellivision controller.
Right. It had the disc with the keypad.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But why does he believe that?
I don't know.
It makes no sense.
I mean, I think that's why. It doesn't mean I think it's a good idea, but I do. I understand where he got the idea from. I don't know why he went through with it.
Yeah.
But I get it. I see where the pedigree lies.
I mean, look, when I was talking to Tommy on 3 Night Weekend, I was skeptical on the show. Wasn't like, oh, this is a great idea, Tommy, and this is gonna do great or anything like that. I was skeptical about it. But respectful, because he decided to come on the show. So the show ends, and I just tell him, straight up, I'm like, Tommy, why wouldn't someone just use their cell phone to play these games? Or why wouldn't they just play a Switch, their Switch that they already have? Most kids who play games already own a Switch. And all he would say was, Shane, people counted me out with Video Games Live. I told people that I was going to do a concert of video game music, and people laughed in my face. He's like, who's laughing now, Shane? He goes,
yeah, but here's the thing. I never laughed at that because I knew that was a good idea. People laughed at him because they didn't understand video games or that video game music has great music in it. We knew that. We weren't laughing at Video Games Live.
No. He's talking about, investors and people who run in big money circles.
People who didn't know any better. But we do know better.
Do know better than this.
This is different.
But
I always believed in Video Games Live.
This is a case of someone who has been successful at pretty much everything they've ever done becoming delusional over it and thinking, oh, just because anything I've done has never failed, even though people said it was going to fail, that means that this is not going to fail. The logic there makes no sense whatsoever. None. But that is what he's going with, and that's kind of the marching orders that he gives himself for this. Look at that. Actually, I want to just pause this right here. Take it.
It looks like something that would massage your feet.
Yeah, I'm going to actually bring this back here because I just want to take a look at this console. It is just crazy. I mean, the other part of it, too, is that, in all the media they've released for this, it never shows the frickin' console. It's always just, the little games that they're making for it.
Well, it's a weird-looking box.
Let's see. Oh, we'll just start it over. Great.
There it is.
There it is. That's insane, Matt.
They look like old iPods.
Yeah, it looks like old iPods for controllers.
So you're using the touchscreen as, the buttons? Or?
Yeah, it's to interact, but it's you can't play the game on the screen.
Right, you play it on the TV.
You play it on the TV.
Right.
Yeah, you can't take the controller away.
But there's only one button, or
no? There's buttons underneath and blah blah blah. And, you use the circle as the D-pad, and there's shoulder buttons and all that. That's the thing, Matt. They haven't shown any of this stuff enough for people to understand. There, you can see the buttons on the side a little bit.
It's like an oversized VMU.
Really, that's what it is. It's like an old Dreamcast VMU that's just on steroids, basically.
Mm-hmm.
But see, they show everything so quickly, it's you can't really get a look at the hardware. I guess they're going to make it in 30 different colors. I don't know,
Apparently, we've got to make it in one color first.
The whole thing is just insane, dude. And I don't know if Tommy has much of his own money invested in it. I'm guessing he doesn't. I hope that he does not.
I would hope he's not that far gone on it. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's if there's one thing you can say about him, he's always been shrewd with his money.
Yeah.
So I would think he has investors for this, not his own.
Although recently he has gone a little overboard with buying Ferraris.
Well, who hasn't?
For the longest time, he just had that old one from Magnum PI, and he had that for 2 decades. And now, I guess since Video Games Live has blown up, he has just bought like 3 brand new ones or whatever. He's turned into like a Ferrari enthusiast or whatever.
He's always been a Ferrari
fan. It's a good gig if you can afford it.
Sure. It's a hobby. Everybody got it. Yeah. I mean, he's always been a little extravagant and things like that. I've known him for a long time. I like him very much personally.
Yeah, he's a nice guy.
I remember the first time I ever met him in person. I was waiting to interview Bruce Boxleitner for Tron 2.0 at the Buena Vista software booth, and he was there waiting to interview as well. And he taps. I just feel this tap on my arm, and I turn, and he's standing there next. I knew him because I'd seen Electric Playground, obviously, and I was like, and he's in his full Tron suit, like the skin tight Tron suit with the helmet and everything. And he's like, it's like, what do you think? I had it made, and I'm just like. That's great, dude. I just didn't know what, like, you don't know what the proper response is to that, right?
I felt that way doing the whole interview with him about it, because I'm sitting there, I'm like, this is crazy. Like, I don't know why you're doing this, and you're flushing all, and he just kept saying, like, everybody counted me out, Shane.
Yeah. I mean, I enjoy. I mean, I liked a lot of his music back in the day. His Terminator Sega CD soundtrack is the first video game music I ever played in my car.
Yeah.
I just took the game CD, stuck it in my car, and played it, and it was great.
Look, he's a good guy, and I've worked with him for a ton of years. Like, as he worked at G4, and they worked on Judgment Day, and all the other shows that they did for G4. And he's never been anything but good to me. But it's not my job to
no.
Pave over stuff that my friends do.
You don't need to glad hand the Amico just because you like him.
No, and I won't. As a journalist, I would never do that. So if I'm going to say
now you're a Tommy knocker. You remember that?
That's pretty good.
Remember that? That was what he used to call the people who hated on him.
I don't remember that.
Yeah, on Electric Playground, when people would like say he was wrong usually about Smash Brothers, gave Smash Brothers like a 2 out of 10 or something. Yeah. Like people would yell at him about it on the forums and stuff, and he called them Tommy knockers.
Oh.
That was his nickname for people who like hated on him. Which I always thought that was funny.
Look, I hope it isn't doomed. I hope it finds an audience, but it's doomed. It's not going to find an audience, and he's going to end up with a warehouse full of these things that nobody wants to buy because it's going to be delayed. I mean, maybe the point of this is that the games already look so old that it doesn't matter when it comes out.
Sorta, but like that price for what is
$250.
Wow,
$250.
I mean, just get a Switch.
Exactly, or a PC, or you use your phone.
I promise Switch has just as much shovelware for you.
Kids use iPads for this stuff, for these kind of games.
This doesn't. I know like the for the kids thing. It's like this isn't for the kids. This is for the parents to make the kids play.
And the kids will hate it.
And the kids are like, "Why you want me to play these old dumb games?" And it's like, "Because this is what I played when I was your age." She's like, "Yeah, but that's all you had. Yeah. I have better things. I can play Minecraft now. Go away." You know
exactly on my phone.
Yeah,
that you guys bought me when I was 8.
Right.
Anyway. It does feel like the industry has kind of left him behind, and he's behind it, thinking he's still in it, but living in that old world. I don't know. Again, I do wish him luck. I don't want him to fail, but
no,
it is not looking good at all. And I would recommend against anybody buying this or pre-ordering it. I just would. I hate to say that, but
I mean, it does seem like maybe if you actually do want one, the only way to get one might be to pre-order, because it sounds there's a scenario I think where you fulfill pre-orders and then just walk away from it.
Yeah,
but
right, that's what I think might happen.
It could be.
Get the unit to the people who already paid, and just shut it down.
But at that point, you're not.
And no one blames him. No one's going to blame him either. Like, he has an out. Like he can save face, because everyone's going to be like, well, yeah, it was COVID and you couldn't get the components you needed. That's good enough for me. Like, and if I were you, I would have bailed too. I would have bailed a long time ago.
Yeah, but even if there was more to the story, I think that is a completely believable story.
Yeah, absolutely.
And even other, I mean, obviously this thing was going to be hard to get together in the best of times.
Yep.
And
and it's not.
No, this is definitely not the best of times. So
definitely not. Okay, that's it for the base part of GameFace 267. But I don't know if you guys remembered, but this is the first week for Name That Game. So just as a refresher for people who were not on the show or didn't watch the show live last week, or maybe didn't even watch the archive, you guys are going to compete against that guy, Matthew Kyle, literally a video game encyclopedia. You guys are going to have to beat him. And just to kind of lay it out, The game is called Name That Game. We're going to do this every week going forward. And it's going to be a little awkward the first time. One, because it's the first time I had to, like, create the questions and stuff. I don't know if it's going to be, like, too easy or too hard. But two, just getting the whole production of it done and ready and things like that, it's not going to be easy. But we'll get it sorted out, and as we keep doing it, it'll become smoother and more fun and better. But this is the first time. So here's how it works. You're basically trying to come up with the name of a game. I will start giving you clues for the name of the game, and they start out really, like, obtuse and obscure, and then they get easier until basically at the end you'd have to be a fool to not know what the game is. And that's hard for me as the writer of these. Like, I didn't realize how tough that was going to be to write these clues. It's not easy. So if I failed at this, I'm sorry. I'll get better. This is the first time I've done it. And also how it's going to work is you're trying to beat Matt, but we do know that you guys are on a delay. And so I'm trying to account for that by, if Matt names the name of the game, I'm going to look over at the screen and give it like a beat or two. And if the name of the game is already in there or it shows up in a beat or two on the screen, you guys will win. So I'm giving you guys kind of the benefit of the doubt. Also, one thing I forgot to do that I should have was to set the stream on low latency mode, so they don't have as much latency as the least amount of latency as possible. I'll do that for next week's show. But for this week, you're at a little bit more of a disadvantage than you will be going forward. If you win, if you beat Matt, you will get a set of sifted stickers that I will send anywhere in the world. Anywhere. Somebody asked me on YouTube yesterday if I'll send them to Laos. I said, yes, I will send them to Laos. Literally.
So if you win, fly to Antarctica and make him send it to Ice Station Zebra or whatever that is.
That might be the only place where I can't send them. I think Antarctica maybe. So anyway, yes, we will send them anywhere. If you win, do not just roll out. Send us a direct message here on Twitch with your name and your full address. And I know this sounds simple, but when people buy T-shirts at Sifted.net, they often leave out their full address. They'll even leave out their name sometimes, Matt. So anyway, make sure you leave your name and your full mailing address. And if you're living in Europe, make sure you include your postal code. Make sure you include like the territory or the province that you're living in. Make sure you leave everything. So when I get out of here today, I can just put the stickers in an envelope, slap the postage on it, and get it out to you ASAP. So anyway, here we go with the first ever attempt at Name That Game. We'll see how it goes. And I got to move my drink here so I can see if you guys get in here real quickly. Ultimate Villain, thank you for Twitch Prime. All right, are you guys ready? Again, this is a race. You need to figure it out. And I'll say this, too. This was the hardest part, Matt, was realizing that they can use Google. You cannot. Mm-hmm. So I also had to write the clues in such a way that them having access to Google wasn't going to let them get it the first, like, 2 clues or whatever. So I've thought about all this. We'll see how it goes. All right. And after I give a clue, I'll give you like 10 or 15 seconds to think about it. If we don't get any response, we'll move on to the next clue. Justin Horman, thank you for Twitch Prime. Awesome. Okay. Are you guys ready? Here's the first clue. It was released in 2008 for Xbox 360 and PS3, but it ran to PC in 2009.
Mirror's Edge.
Yes. Did you see this sheet?
No.
Damn.
You said ran to PC. What was the running game in 2009 was Mirror's Edge.
Wow. Yeah. Well,
we're not giving these stickers away, people.
I can't believe you got that. Justin Horman, I don't know. I don't know if they actually got it or if they're just like, they heard you say it and now they're putting it in there. You're too late. Yeah.
No, Fire Native's Holy Crap is before that, so I'm going to say that already happened.
Dude, that's insane. No one's ever going to beat you. If you got it from that. Are you sure you didn't see the sheet?
I am sure I did not see the sheet.
Damn. All right, you guys are going to have to be on your game. Well, look, just for fun, I'll read the rest of the clues that I'd written because I put a lot of work into these. I really never thought anybody would get it from the first clue. The second clue was, its developers typically create shooters, but they decided to roll the dice on a new idea.
Dice, yeah.
Dice developed the game. Third clue, When you're staring down from the top of a skyscraper, you have to have faith.
Yeah.
Faith is the name of the lead character in the game. Here's probably the most obscure one, but if Google would have got it if people use Google, this would have probably got it for them. Sylvia Plath loves this game's title.
Yeah.
2 of her most famous poems were Mirror and Edge. Yep. And then the final clue
throw on the English major a bone there, I think.
Well, if they Google it, Sylvia Plath, and then they'll show her most famous poems. You should read Sylvia Plath, by the way. Amazing poet. And then the final clue, the one that was supposed to give it away to everybody, EA has published a lot of games, but this one's definitely not par for the course. So I got parkour in there. So anyway, good job, Matt. That's impressive, dude. I can't believe you got that. I have to be even better at this. I have to be even more clever going forward.
There are people saying Justin Horman got it in before I said it.
Yeah?
I don't know. I was not looking at the chat at the time. Horman did get it in there real fast.
It was a few beats after you answered it, but...
I mean, the placement of that and where Fire Nation's Holy Crap comes, I could believe he said it before I did.
Okay. All right. Look at the... Somebody altered the... That's hilarious. Somebody altered the emojis, and somehow I now have sunglasses on the emojis. That's awesome. Good job. Okay, you know what? We'll give it to Justin, because I want people to win this. So, Justin, send me a DM. Actually, you can reach out to me on sifted.net. You're there all the time. But send me your full address, and we'll get the stickers out to you. So there you go. We actually finally have, or we actually do have a winner of Name That Game for the first time. A round of applause for Justin Horman. I'm a little suspect. I don't know that he really did get it before you.
Yeah, if I can get it, someone else can get it,
I'm sure. But whatever. We're more than happy to send out the winnings to Justin Horman. Plus, he's a great supporter.
I would have been faster if I could remember the name of the game.
So it took you a second?
The thinking second was because I was like, oh, yeah, the white game with the running girl and the red told you where to go. Mirrors that. It was like I had to run through what the name of the game was for a second.
Well, that sucks that Matt got it on the first clue.
It's also funny that, was it Consolize, is that it? Said Dead Space. Because they were just guessing, earlier, it said Dead Space, because Dead Space was also part of the Mirror's Edge and Dead Space were kind of part of the EA's, trilogy of, new IP games at that time.
Yep.
They got you pegged. They knew where you're going there.
They did.
In a weird way.
So congratulations, Justin Horman. You won the first ever installment of Name That Game. It will be back next week and every week. We'll do it before we jump into the Q&A section of the show every week going forward. So come back next week, and you have to stick around until the end. All right, let's get to some Q&A here. Actually, I probably need to thank some people first for Twitch Prime. Let's see. Johnny Hurricane, thank you for Twitch Prime, man. You're awesome, as always. It looks like actually everybody maybe did Twitch Prime earlier. Ultimate Villain, thank you for Twitch Prime. Who else? Tiny2K, thank you for gifting the subs to everyone in our chat. Again, another reason to show up and watch the show live every Tuesday at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern at twitch.tv/SiftedGames. The least of which is to get the show early if you're not a paying patron. Slagathor, thank you for Twitch Prime. And here we're getting into some questions. All right, first one from Cinetike. Regarding the XCOM Marvel thing, how about an X-Men XCOM game where your base was Xavier's school and you recruit young mutants that would evolve over time, gaining new abilities, kind of like the soldiers in XCOM, only the level-up abilities were improved mutant superpowers. I could see that being very interesting. What do you think? I think that's a pretty good idea.
Yeah, sounds better than what they seem to be doing.
It sounds like a better thing than we just talked about. I think that's good.
Like an Xavier's school thing sounds like a pretty good analog for the the XCOM base building stuff. Yeah. And you could be expanding the danger room or whatever, that kind of thing. Yeah. It kind of writes itself, doesn't it? I don't understand why they're doing what they're doing. Oh well.
Yep. Next up, Schneeky. Charlotte Snake, how you doing, brother? Hope you're having a good week. Shane, Real Talk. How much for the adorable little Big Daddy behind you? Sell me it. If not now, I'm calling dibs on it when you retire and sell up. Let me switch cameras here so you guys can see it. I'll show it to you guys a little better. Oh, and I'll hit the microphone. Blow your ears out.
Lost $10 off the value for whacking it on the microphone.
You can see there, it's like a chibi Big Daddy.
It's kind of like done up like it was knitted.
It looks like it's made out of material, but it's plastic actually.
Yeah. But it's like supposed to be like a knitted plush.
Yeah, but he's pretty cool. And we'll rotate stuff in and out of here behind me on the windowsill. Actually, I'm curious if you guys like the stuff on the windowsill or if I should remove it.
I don't know.
Do you have an opinion?
No, I mean, all I thought was like, I could bring some of the stuff I don't want anymore in here. And you put
this whole other window over here still needs something. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so if you need to dump anything, just feel free to bring it in with you. Bring a whole bag full of stuff.
Got a few of those.
But yeah, when I do retire, I'll definitely announce it on Twitter because I'm obviously going to want people who really wants this stuff to buy it. ETH Demon.
Somebody asked if it's a clicker next to the Yoshi egg. That's a Borderlands.
Yeah, it's a Borderlands character. Yep. ETH Demon, what do you think of Epic spending $500 million on EGS exclusives and not profiting from it? I think it looks bad for them in the Apple case.
Yeah.
But I think it's also kind of the cost of doing business.
Yeah, they have a plan that apparently doesn't start to pay off in profit until 2027, but like
now they're saying they're not going to be profitable until 2027. It's like, what?
In the game store, sure. The other stuff they're doing is plenty profitable. So
yeah.
They want that. They want to hold
share.
that base. They want that market share, and that's how you got. I mean, that's pretty much what Microsoft did too. That's what Bill Gates said apparently back when they were developing the first Xbox was,
lose
whatever it costs. Like we have to. We have to get this market.
Yep. Let's see. Lynn Jeff 99. Would you buy Back 4 Blood based on the beta? No, I wouldn't. I would buy it for like $40 probably. I would not buy it for $60. Mm-hmm. But again, I've only played the beta. There could be parts of the game that are amazing that aren't included in the beta, and I reserve the right to change my judgment on it. But again, you asked based on what I played in the beta, would I pay $60 for it? I would not. But again, you can find out for yourself on Thursday when it opens up for everybody else. So I highly recommend if you're really into it and you've been excited for it, play the beta. Set aside some time to do it. The matches go pretty quick, especially if you play on that default difficulty setting where you never die.
Is it Game Pass?
It is Game Pass, yeah. So it will be on Game Pass day and date. So if you're a Game Pass subscriber, it doesn't matter. You can just play
I guess I will play it.
Yeah, maybe you will. Or maybe not.
I'll try it.
We'll see.
I assume you're going to want to talk about it again.
We probably will, yep. Mermelson, any last thoughts on the Ascent? Did you play it anymore?
No.
I didn't either.
I seem to have topped out around 8 hours.
I think that speaks volumes, though, because it was a very slow week for video games, and neither Matt nor I played any more of the Ascent after last week's show.
To be fair, I didn't play a lot in general. It was a busy week. Although when I had the time, I played Saints Row 4.
You went and played Saints Row 4?
Oh, I'm like 15 hours into Saints Row 4.
A lot of people also contesting that your favorite Saints Row is the best Saints Row.
Yeah, I know. Like a lot of people think boring stuff like Saints Row 2 is, but Saints Row 4 is the best game in the series by far.
Okay.
That is where they finally embraced all the weird stuff and went completely
quit trying to like
completely
half-step
free.
it.
Yeah, just like go completely. We're not trying to do a wackier GTA. We are just going crazy, and it's great.
I can understand that approach and why it would make you deem it the best. Because it's probably where they should have gone from the beginning.
Yeah, and I lost a lot. I also kind of, because I used to feel like, I go back and forth between that and the third and 3. And then I played Saints Row the Third, the remastered one they put out like last year. I'm like, right, this game is just, you play mini games forever.
Yeah.
And like there's no real story stuff. You're just doing it. And the same thing is true in 4. All the side missions you do for the characters are just doing the side activities. But the side activities are stuff like telekinetically throwing giant balls at trucks and like, flying around and throwing fireballs at people. Whereas like all the mini games in Saints Row 3 are tedious and grindy and annoying things that are way too hard for their own good in some cases. But like, yeah, I liked how wacky they got, and I wish that series would come back because Agents of Mayhem did not scratch the same itch.
Agreed. Vincent, how thankful is Intellivision that the Atari VCS bombed even harder this year? I wouldn't say it bombed even harder. We'll see what happens with the Intellivision Amico.
We'll see who makes a bigger crater in the end.
The race to the bottom. Yeah, I mean, I think we've talked about this before, but going back before the NES, really hard.
Yeah, even the NES.
The NES is like right on the fringe there. Yeah, it's just... And unfortunately, if you're interested in doing something like that, you've kind of run out of platforms. Like ColecoVision, that's left. And one would argue, if you were going to do an old console like that, it probably should have been ColecoVision.
But you know what the main game I associate with ColecoVision is?
Donkey Kong.
And you're never going to get that.
Yep.
So,
Arcade Perfect Donkey Kong. That was its selling point at launch. Because we were playing that crappy Atari 2600 Donkey Kong.
Crappy Atari 2600, everything. Let's be honest.
Yep. One Supermaster Gamer, what is the movie or series you guys are the most looking for before the end of the year? For me, it's Dune. I think most people are going to say Dune.
I'm certainly looking forward to Dune more because of the director.
Yeah.
He's never made anything less than a good movie. Most of them have been great movies. Shang-Chi, I'm super excited about. Shang-Chi is my most anticipated Marvel thing right now because I grew up reading Deadly Hands of Kung Fu. And a lot of the martial arts stuff that Marvel did, and I thought it was really cool, and I never thought I'd get to see a Shang-Chi movie, and here it is. Awesome. Those are great. Those Deadly Hands of Kung Fu was actually not even a comic book. It was classified as a magazine.
Oh.
Which meant it didn't have to have a Comics Code Authority rating on it, so it was more violent than normal. It was black and white. It was like a different thing. It felt like reading something I wasn't supposed to read. It was great. It was more of an indie comic. Now you go back to it now, and it's just like, oh, this is horribly racist in every possible respect. But like, as someone who was watching like martial arts stuff and like Bruce Lee and everything, I thought the Shang-Chi stuff was fantastic, and I'm just glad I'm glad that Shang-Chi is going to be a household name now. And Simu Liu is a adorable man who is a great follow on Twitter, and very excited to be a Marvel superhero. He's a lot of fun.
I was waiting for this one. Wampler, Suicide Squad review.
Haven't seen it.
Oh, you didn't watch it yet?
Oh.
Do you want me to talk about it? I did watch it, believe it or not.
If you want. I don't care.
Okay.
I haven't seen it because my friends I usually go see movies with do not want to go to theaters right now, and I don't want to see it on a TV first, so I'm going to kind of wait and see what happens.
Okay. I'll do this spoiler free.
I don't care about spoilers.
Okay. Better than I thought. In fact, I would say a lot better than I thought. But nowhere near as good as Guardians of the Galaxy.
It's about what I expected.
Yeah. Is it the best DC movie? Second best. But it's definitely better than pretty much all of them.
Yeah, I mean, what's that saying? But like,
it's a low bar.
Yeah. What's the best?
Probably Batman. Still.
Batman?
Well, Dark Knight, whatever.
That's not DCEU, but
yeah. Well, now you're getting semantic-y on me.
Well, the Suicide Squad is still technically part of the universe, the shared universe thing.
It's definitely way better than the first Suicide Squad.
Oh, yeah.
By leaps and bounds. But I would say this. It's not as... It's better than I thought, but I don't see James Gunn in this movie as much as I thought I would. Because then when I'm watching it, I can see that that's what he did, other than the gore.
Right.
The gore is insane. It is really gory. I would almost like to sit in a theater and watch a bunch of Karens watching this movie with their kids because it is really gory. But I enjoyed it, and I can't say that about most of the DC movies that I watch. Like most of the time, I can't finish them. So, yeah, I enjoyed it.
Yeah, there's only like 2 other ones that I would even call good. So
yeah, it's like I said, the bar is low.
They can use all the help they can get. So maybe it bombed really hard. So. Partly because of the people not wanting to go to... People are not going to the theater now because of Delta.
Yeah.
But like Godzilla vs. King Kong outgrossed it for the opening weekend. It didn't even do Birds of Prey numbers, really.
Really?
And it's it's up against the pandemic, the resurgence of the pandemic, but also I really do think that first movie did damage to the Suicide Squad name that can maybe not be repaired.
It's tough. Well, the other problem, too, is it's named basically the same thing.
Right, is the Suicide Squad.
Yeah, a lot of people were just confused. Yeah. Like, is it the same movie? Is it like, have they reissued it because of COVID or some crap? Like, there's a lot of confusion. But it's enjoyable, and I enjoyed watching it. Like, I never looked at, like, the time I was watching it or was like, oh, I can pause this, and, like I plowed through the whole thing straight through. It's paced pretty well.
I've heard that like the last third just stops trying to be funny and it's just like serious and gory.
It is.
That's it.
Yeah, that's accurate. Love the new studio from Commander Fett. Thank you, man. I'm really stoked on it, too. Shneeky says, leave the Big Daddy there, and I'll be here every week. Okay, we'll leave it there. Yakov226, what do you think about Blue Box Game Studios developer of Abandoned? It's delayed again. Well, it sounds like they named it appropriately then.
Yeah, I mean, they've said some weird stuff about like how it's like, oh, the Silent Hill thing, but people, if we ever get to show it, people will freak out, but we might never get to make it. Like it's like that whole situation is weird.
It is
to me.
weird.
I don't really know what to make of it right now.
Me either. We'll take one more. Let's see. An Amiga Mini was announced today for early next year.
Yeah, I saw that.
Another big mistake. Same company that did the Commodore 64 Mini. Big mistake. OCD Master 1. Last question. What are some racing games you enjoyed this past generation that are not Forza Horizon? I can't remember the name of it, but it was the racing game by Evolution Studios that used to do MotorStorm. What was it called? It had kind of a unique twist on it. It was almost like was it a time manipulation mechanic or something?
I don't know. You also liked one that was like, it was like a future-y one.
You talking about that hover racer thing?
Yeah.
That was from last year, actually. Or the year before, even, maybe.
Well, that's past generation.
Oh, I thought he was just saying this past year. Maybe somebody's figured out what the name of that racing game is I was talking about. Blur? No, it's not Blur.
That was a little older.
Blur's older.
I liked one of the Need for Speeds.
Go on Sifted and search Evolution Studios, and it'll pop up every game that they've made.
I like Need for Speed.
Don't make me do it.
Whatever the Need for Speed was, it came out like early 2014. Most Wanted? Like the last open world Criterion one. I can't remember what it was. I think it was Most Wanted.
I'm just going to flip over to the site here and show you guys how cool frickin' Sifted is. Developers. Evolution Studios.
You know what I wish actually
here's
Onrush.
Onrush.
Yeah.
Yep.
You know what I wish
Only on Sifted people can you do stuff like this.
You know what I wish really did
a little notifier that we're live.
You know what I just really did carry forward and get another installment was Split Second.
Split Second.
Which was previous generation before, but
yep. But Onrush,
one of the most criminally underplayed, underknown games.
Yep.
That's all I can really think of. I don't play a lot of racing games.
Not anymore, unfortunately.
There aren't a lot of racing games.
There aren't that many. So when he has a caveat of minus Forza Horizon, it's like,
yeah.
Trailblazers is the game you were talking about that I played. It was like the hover racer. It was kind of like an F-Zero clone. Mm-hmm. But that was from 2 years ago, something like that. But that was this gen. Yeah, and I did enjoy that. It was pretty good since Nintendo won't give us an F-Zero. What are we going to do? It was a pretty good facsimile. I think that's it for 267. That's 2 episodes down in our new studio. I think it's gone pretty well. Hopefully you guys like how I've dressed the set from this week to last. The cameras have been better today. I know that for a fact. So I've kept my eyes peeled on our monitor, and it has not flickered in and out of like its different lighting stages. So hopefully you guys are cool with all that. Yeah, like I said, this Saturday, Ask Shane Anything at noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern. And then the following Saturday is when I will play your Super Mario Maker 2 levels. So if you're working on one of those, get that wrapped up. And number 3, we are lining up our Sifted Fantasy Football League, not video game fantasy league, our Fantasy Football League. We already have one person who left. It was Mick Womble. People who are on Sifted.net make him feel as guilty as possible for leaving the league, even though I will now feel guilty because he does have legitimate reasons for not being able to do it. But we do have an open slot, so DM me on Sifted or get at me on Twitter. And you can fill into the slot. We do make sure we always let in our patrons first. If we do not have enough patrons to fill the league, then we will start talking to other folks. So if you're a patron and you want to get in the league, you've been trying to for years, and there are a bunch of you, there's a slot open right now, and there may be more. Everybody else in the league, respond to the email that was sent by ESPN so I can know if you guys are going to play or not. And I think that's it. If you do want to find me on Twitter to tell me you want to be in the league, I am at Dinfire. Matt is at mkyle. If you're someone who's watching most of our stuff on YouTube, you can't afford to help us, totally get it. I've been broke many times in my life. You can help us with Twitch Prime, which is down in the description. And if you want to know when our stuff is going up for free on YouTube, you need to follow the site at Sifted Games. In fact, if anybody is following me personally at Dinfire, to get updates on when stuff is going up, you should follow Sifted Games, because I'm about to stop retweeting all that stuff from my personal account because it's just annoying. Like, I don't follow people to figure out whatever they're doing when they're publishing stuff. I wanted to do it when we first launched, obviously, because most people are going to be like, oh, what's Shane up to? Always doing this Sifted thing. I've done it for a few years now. I don't want to keep bombarding my followers with, here's the latest episode of Pactor Factor, here's the latest episode of GameFace or whatever. So I'm going to stop doing that. So if you've been relying on my Twitter account to get all that information, you should also follow us at Sifted Games on Twitter. We'll be back next week. Next Tuesday. We're here every Tuesday at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern at twitch.tv/Sifted Games. If you're listening to the show out on the wilds of the internet and you'd like to support us, head to patreon.com/Sifted, and that's SIFTD without the E. So Sifted without the E. You can give us as much or as little as you want. But if you want to get all our content early, you need to give us $4 a month or more. And then obviously if you go up, there are more perks and more things like being able to jump on a call with me on Saturday for Ask Shane Anything, and that's at the $7 tier. So thanks to everybody who showed up live. Everybody, as I said, send all the positive vibes that you can to Marcus Beer, who's going through tough stuff right now, and Adam Sessler. You would be surprised at how a personal message to someone when they're going through something tough can make a huge, huge difference. So please reach out to Marcus, who is about to start a fight with cancer, and Adam Sessler, who just underwent back surgery today. Both people from the Brotherhood who are going through some tough stuff right now, and I know they would appreciate any and all support that they can get. So anyway, that's it for GameFace 267. We'll be back here next weekend. GameFace is up and out.